listening to Your Physique Radio in association with IrishMuscle.ie. We are broadcasting worldwide via iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook, bringing you the latest in bodybuilding, fitness, and nutrition. Your Physique Radio. It's your physique. It's your choice.
Alright everybody, welcome along to Your Physique Radio. This is episode number 20. It is December the 11th, 2012. My name is Colin Kennedy, and joining me on the line back home in Ireland, as always, is Craig Clifford. Craig, how are you doing back home, pal?
I'm pretty good now, pretty good. It's seriously busy inside the gym, strangely enough. Usually December would be a bit quiet, like coming up into January rush, but yeah, it's very busy, thank God. How about you over there?
Oh yeah, all is good. I haven't really slowed down yet in these last couple of weeks before Christmas, but I'm sure we'll slow a little bit in terms of training and people going on holidays and stuff here, but January is looking like it's going to be a busy one and a good one, so I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Nice one. You know, in this business, like, it pretty much determines how the rest of the year will go with a good January and February, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing, you know, if I can keep the people that I have at the moment and grab a few more along the way, you know, most of the people, if not all the people I get with good intentions for the first couple of months typically stay with me until times change and they move on to whatever else happens. You know, people's goals change as they progress, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. But you know, initially somebody might come to you saying they want to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, and all of a sudden that happens in a snap, and well, what's next? And you know, it's the what next and how to do the next part of it is kind of the key in keeping people motivated. And again, we'll speak about that a little bit later on. But Craig, in tonight's show then, for our listeners, we're going to be covering the Masters Olympia. We're going to do a review of that and how we saw everyone standing and how the weekend went itself in Miami, Florida. We will also have a list of the guys who turned pro, who are notable turning pro in 2012 here in the States, and a couple from Europe and around the world. We'll be talking about goal setting, as previously mentioned, for the new year and anything thereafter. And we will also have a feature interview this week with Mike Pulcinella. The guys might know out there as the man and the voice behind most of Kai Green's latest training DVDs. He's an MHP videographer, and you know, he's had DVDs out there raising the bar 1, 2, 3, and basically anytime you see Kai Green, the man behind the camera is Mike Pulcinella. So that interview will be on later on. We did it a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sure you will enjoy that one. He has some nice insight into Kai Green, the man who is a little bit on the controversial side these last couple of weeks since his trip to Ireland, Craig.
Yeah. There's a bit to talk about that old weekend he had, so we might get into that a little later.
Yeah.
But as far as the Mike Puccinella interview goes, guys, it's a beezer because it's not every day you get to actually talk to a person that's right there, right alongside the pro, and the fact that it's not another pro talking to a pro and they're saying all the key words in an interview and everything they should be saying. This is a guy who's a bit left the field of bodybuilding. He's not like a bodybuilder per se himself. He trains a bit alright, but you'll hear it in the interview. It's a great insight from, we'll say, your regular Joe into seeing what a bodybuilder's lifestyle is all about.
Yeah.
He's some great words. He's got some really, really good words. It's a fantastic interview.
Yeah, the listeners might be a little bit surprised as to some of Mike's references or quotes about Kai. But definitely, again, guys, tune in. That'll be later on in the show. It's something definitely to listen into, and I'm sure we'll get some good feedback around the boards on the internet and stuff like that. But Craig, this past weekend, the Masters Olympia took place. It was rejuvenated. It was in a hiatus from 2004, I believe it was, when Claude Gruel won the official Masters Olympia way back when. Since then, there's been a couple of Masters competitions here and there, the Pro World Masters and the whatever else. But this is officially sanctioned by the IFBB. It did have the title Masters Olympia, and Craig, there was an absolute huge turnout for this show in terms of male bodybuilding, which was the Masters competition itself. There were other facets to the competition, you know, the bikini was in there and all this, but it was not Masters. We do not care about it. All in all, I think there was 32 competitors, Craig, in the Masters division. Masters in this case being 40 or over on the day of the event, and some big names were there. Some surprising guys on stage, a couple of guest posers that probably shouldn't have been guest posing, but look, it is what it is. Just to give the folks out there a bit of a rundown on the results, the top 10: Drew Jamot, 9, Troy Alves, 8, Bill Wilmore, 7, Darren Charles, 6, Micah Falianos, 5, Ronnie Rockel, 4, Ed Nunn, 3, Dennis James, 2, Tony Freeman, and taking home the win for the second year in a row, if we want to say it that, Dexter Jackson, and very much deservedly so in my opinion. Craig, how did you see the competition itself?
It was an unbelievable competition. It was actually one of the better ones of the year, surprisingly. But we have to start obviously with the winner. I took some notes as I was watching some video and some pictures. I was doing some comparison pictures. To me, honestly, I think that's one of the best Dexter Jackson I've ever seen. I think it was better than his 2009 Olympia win. He had it, everything, and we both love Dexter's physique. Anyway, I would think the guy could come back into the big shows like the Arnold Classic. I think if he brings what he brought last weekend, I honestly think he could win the Arnold Classic for a fourth time. Well, he was spectacular.
Yeah, if we look at the guys who placed in the Olympia this year, so you had Dennis Wolf, who apparently is not doing the Arnold Classic. Phil Heath obviously won, he's not doing the Arnold Classic. Kai Green we're not sure about. So if neither of those three guys go in...
New York Pro, Colin.
Is he?
Yeah, he's doing New York Pro, so I would doubt he's going to do the Arnold Classic.
Yeah,
he is doing the New York Pro, yeah.
Because, so that leaves out the three top guys. Next in line on the Olympia stage was Dexter in fourth, so by default he should take the show. And like you said, considering his performance over the weekend, I have no doubt in my mind that Dexter can take a fourth Arnold Classic title, which would tie the record with Flex Wheeler, if I'm correct. 4 Arnold Classic champion wins, Mr. Olympia win, Masters World Champion, Masters Olympia Champion, and a whole host of shows along the way. Dexter Jackson truly is one of the greatest bodybuilders that ever stepped on stage. I just don't think he sometimes gets the recognition that he deserves.
I actually totally agree with you, Colin. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, everyone thinks of Dexter Jackson as, oh yeah, he's the blade, he's always in good condition. I don't think people understand how hard that is to come in condition all the time. It's maybe in the last year or 18 months the condition hasn't been great, but for 10 years previous to that, you could guarantee he was coming in almost perfect every time.
Yeah.
And to see him come back, and to come back so strong. I mean, there was lots of hype about DJ coming back, Tony Freeman being 46 years old, in the top echelon of bodybuilding at the moment. Ed Nunn, fantastic bodybuilder. Michael Kay. There's lots there. Like, there's a lot of good trials. Tricky Jackson, Lee Banks. There's a lot of guys who have coming up there, and he just absolutely destroyed the field. Especially at the pre-judging, it was like, nah, I'm not even going to watch the rest of it. Just give him the check.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it was a better Dexter than it was in 2009 when he won the Olympia.
That was actually 2008, so that's 4 full years ago, Craig, that he was at his best, let's say, and then he repeats that this year. So, whether it's his combination working with George Farah, who seems to be the man of the moment, or not, who knows. But, yeah, Dexter looked phenomenal. He's flawless apart from his calves. Even at that, they're not terrible, but they're definitely not the best calves on stage. But his symmetry, his balance from left to right, top to bottom is just as good can be. I love the guy's physique. And just to add to some of his accolades there earlier, I just noticed that he also won the Arnold Classic Europe. So he's one of the most decorated guys, especially on the worldwide stage and not just at the Olympia, where a lot of guys seem to hone in and do one show a year. He doesn't just sit back like that all of the time. Once or twice, sure, but typically does a couple of shows a year, and he's a force to be reckoned with. And Craig, is he 43 now or 44?
44. So, and the thing with him, at 44, he's competed against, throughout his career, against Ronnie, against Jay, even Flex Wheeler,
Yeah.
And Kevin LeBron in the early days. He's had some wicked hard competition along the way. No, it's never going to be easy, but Dexter's road to perfection was probably a bit tougher than anyone's. Honestly, it was brilliant, and for him to be, like you say, one of the most decorated bodybuilders, and deservedly so, I still think he's got a better aesthetic look and physique than Phil Heath. Now, Phil Heath obviously probably has more muscle, and that's why he's Mr. Olympia, and granted, I give him that. But if someone offered me a physique right now, I would take Dexter Jackson's against anybody's right now.
Yeah, you see, Dexter's physique literally looks like a muscle anatomy chart. It's just obviously an exaggerated version, but you know, Phil Heath's isn't exactly. But if you look at Dexter and you look at an anatomy chart, the shape and the balance and the bicep, tricep, everything is in balance. There's not something on this guy's body that doesn't match up to the rest of it. He's always been probably my favourite Mr. Olympia winner. We had a conversation a couple of shows back where we picked our all-time favourite, and Dexter was mine, and it stands true. The guy is just unbelievable. I don't know if he will continue for many more years, but he definitely has one or two more in them. But only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, like if he does the Olympia next year, just say he does win the Arnold in March, and he does the Olympia, and he comes in perfect again. Like a 95% Phil Heath and a 95% Jay Cutler won't beat him. They'd have to be 100% to beat Dexter. Like, no, if they're all 100, Dexter will probably come third. But at that, if Dexter is pretty much always on, so if he's on and the two boys are off, he can win.
I'm not even sure if Jay Cutler's actually going to compete this year, this coming or whatever, 2030.
He's officially signed the contract, so...
I know, but he also officially signed the Shrew Classic contract and never did that one, you know.
True.
I think the signing the contract thing is good for BMI, his new supplement sponsor.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Hype and all that.
Yeah,
like.
you know, a couple of grand as a penalty or whatever it is. Yeah, they'll cover that, I'm sure. But look, we'll find out in about 10 months' time. We'll be back around to the Olympia 2013. I hope to be in attendance for that one. And Craig, you know, you might get yourself on a plane and come on over to Las Vegas for it. And you need to start a fund. Send Craig to Las Vegas 2013 at the gym. Every time somebody does a sloppy rep, they owe you €1. And I tell you,
man pretty soon.
There you go. Every sloppy rep, €1 in Craig's pocket. But
yeah. I might even make it the Arnold Classic as well at that rate.
There you go. But overall, the show I liked it. I don't think Tony Freeman looked fantastic. I heard a lot of praise for Ed Nunn again. I mean, he looks good, but you know, basically it was Dexter Jackson and then also ran. There was no competition. The return of Dennis James, he has the size. His chest is a little bit down, I believe. His abdomen looked a little bit out of control. But he was in shape. His glutes were striated. He was lean as lean can be. He just didn't seem to have that pop or the fullness that he has had in the past. But he's the one guy, Craig, that's always referred to him. We said it before. You know, in the gym, he looks like Mr. Olympia, but on stage is a different story. And if you can't produce on the day, you know, what are you really doing? But look, if he retires properly this time around, he still had a good showing to do a comeback and come third. But if he comes back, I think he can win some smaller shows still, because he still has a great physique, considering that he beat out Ed Nunn, Ronnie Rockwell, Mike Kefalianos, Darren Charles, Bill Wilmore, Troy Alves, Tricky Jackson was in there. You know, there was quite a lot of well-known guys who are in their 40s, early 40s, mid-40s, who, you know, he's still beating them, and he's still good enough to beat them. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does another show or two, especially now that he is with Probiotica, the Brazilian kind of muscle tech. It's a big company. I'm sure if they threw a couple of grand in his direction and asked him to compete, he'd be jumping up on stage as quick as you can say it. So we'll see. Time will tell. But it was a good show all in all. Then they had a Masters seminar. Craig, did you see any footage from the Masters seminar?
Unfortunately, I haven't got any footage yet. I've been kind of trying to get some around the internet. There's only small bits and pieces, but as far as I know, there's one coming up tomorrow on RX, I think. So hopefully get to watch it, the full, or pretty much the basic rundown of it. Yeah. Just to get back to I know the also runs, I suppose, after Dexter Jackson, right?
Yeah.
A few things actually. Now, Dexter Jackson obviously was the runaway winner here, but I was just going on what you said there about Tony Freeman in second. For me, no way. I've seen him way better, Tony Freeman. Now, I mean, he looked good, don't get me wrong, but he also looked a bit tired. I mean, I think he's done 8 shows this year for a guy that's 46 years old, I believe. That's no joke. Like, that's got to wear thin on the body, you know, and I think it showed. Mm-hmm. As far as Dennis James go, again, there was a big kind of hullabaloo about him, you know. Everyone wanted to see DJ, me included. Like, I just couldn't wait to see him. It was a bit of a letdown. Maybe I bigged up it too much. Maybe I was expecting too much, but a bit of a letdown. And his midsection was out of control. It was a bit too much, considering his chest was a little flat and his whole condition was a little flat. I thought.
Yeah.
Ed Nunn looked very good. You know, he looked full. His quads looked big. You know, I'd have given him probably second or third, easily. In my top five, I pretty much wouldn't have Dennis James. And in fifth, is Ronnie Rockwell. No, I don't know if you've seen the comparison pics about Ronnie Rockwell. I wouldn't even give him in the top 10, if I'm honest.
His legs look a little bit funky, don't they? They look fat, even though they're not. They just look fat and bloated.
Exactly. To me, he looked like a guest poser.
Yeah.
It was. He looked, maybe 3 or 4 weeks out of the show, you know. And then in the sixth place came Mike Kay. Now, he looked good, alright, but I wouldn't have given him sixth either. It was Darren Charles I'd have had to put in the top 5.
Yeah, he looked incredible.
He looked unbelievable, like. There wasn't an ounce of water, an ounce of fat in the guy. He was, like, as dry as could be. I thought he looked great. I honestly thought he looked unbelievable. Best condition probably in the show.
The one knock I would have on Darren, his legs look a little bit small.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. Himself and Troyals. Now, Troyals look good as well, but I think the legs are just a little small. But for Darren Charles, for me, he'd be in the top 5. And maybe Bill Wilmore might have crept into the top 5 as well. I wouldn't have had Ronnie Rock or DJ in there, unfortunately. As much as I love DJ, no, not for me. Like, I think that was a bit of a thank you for doing the show. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I know DJ's a fan of this show and he's probably listening, and we love you, man, but you probably know yourself. You've been a lot better, and you still have the potential to be a lot better. So,
but you see, that's the thing, Greg. This is his first show in 2 years, so you know if he goes forwards with this and he kind of fine tunes a couple of mistakes, because your body changes a lot in 2 years. I don't know who he's working with as such, but if he can figure it out, because I know he can get his own clients in shape, if he can get himself into the fullness, and it wasn't a body fat thing. I think he just messed up the last couple of days. Now he might say different, but I do think he definitely can go to the smaller shows like the Flex Pro, which is actually in England this year.
Is it?
It is, yeah. So there's a couple of smaller shows I definitely think you could do damage at, but when it comes to the Arnold Classic, the Mr. Olympia, it's not going to happen. Now, we can still do top 7, top 8, I think, which is obviously testament to his physique and that it has held on quite well, but he has to get a little bit fuller on the day than he was at the Olympia this weekend or the Masters Olympia this weekend. But again, I can't knock the guy. He had a great career, a lot of wins. Seems like a real genuine guy. He's like we said before, when he guest paused in Ireland, he was probably the best in shape guy that visited Ireland at the time, bar maybe Kai Green this year. I don't know, I wasn't there, but you know, it's typically Dennis is a fan favourite. I've watched his DVDs, especially the one where he's training in Thailand, and you know, he's a good guy, and I think the IFBB and the rest of the bodybuilding world appreciate that, and I think he could be coaxed into doing another couple of shows.
And hopefully, like you say, he has the potential to get there. Like, one thing that I kind of stumbled upon, and you brought it to my attention, was a man called Andres Carling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he didn't place. He was 16th, along with about 16 other guys.
Yeah.
But I put up a picture of him on my gym page, and with a heading like about Santa training or something along them lines. But that was just, I was Googling images, and this is what we came across. And then you actually said on the picture, he's doing the show, and I was thinking, nah, he's not, no way, like. And you're like, yeah, there's a guy, he's 60 years old or 61, he's doing the show, blah, blah. And you know what, he did, Colin, you were dead right. But I'm just going to take my hat off to the guy. He looked unbelievable, like. Did you see his biceps and stuff? Like, he's not the greatest bodybuilder of all time, definitely not, but my God, for that age and to have that physique, I'd love to have that physique at 40, at 38, never mind at 60. What do you think of him?
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. It's you wonder how long he took a break from, if he took a break from, what gear he's running at the moment, if he's cycling up for the show, if he wasn't doing anything. But like you said, I mean, he's 60 odd, 61, 62, and for all the world, if you put a shirt on him, he looks like Santa Claus, like you said in your in your picture. And lo and behold, the guy is actually a bodybuilder of past, obviously enough, but if I can look like him when I'm 60, I'll be very, very impressed with myself. And I'm very happy that he kept the full white beard for the competition as well.
Yeah, that was awesome.
if nothing else, it helped him stand out from the rest of the crowd. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It was nice to see. What I will say, Craig, about the guest posers, we had Samir Banu guest posing. He left his shorts on, thankfully, because I guarantee his legs were not anywhere near the condition it would have been. Again, the guy's in his late 50s, early 60s, so you can only look so good at that age. But Ronnie Coleman, to me, needs to keep his clothes on. He needs to stay in the seat. He needs to stop getting up on stage doing guest posing. He just looked ridiculous in a bad way. Now, is he older? Yes, he is, but he's the same age as the rest of the guys on stage. And Dexter Jackson's only probably 2 or 3 years shy of Ronnie Coleman. I think Ronnie needs to take a seat, work on the supplement line, do that type of stuff, do appearances, but not get up and guest pose, because it's hard to see such a great bodybuilder look the way he does now. What do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, there was a picture put up on some bodybuilding page, I think this morning, and I got about 200 comments, and pretty much 190 of them were negative.
Yeah.
Now, I can see the positive. A few of the guys were saying, like, give the guy a break, he's this age, he's that age. And now, like, I will give him a break. He is older, he doesn't compete anymore. But for the sake of, like you said, for the sake of probably arguably the greatest bodybuilder that ever stood on stage, I hope people don't remember him as these bad guest poses.
You see, in my mind, Craig, that's what I see when I think of Ronnie Coleman now. I think of a big, huge dude in his mid to late 40s who just looks like a blob.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you're going to do a guest pose, maybe work out and get in shape a little. I hate saying that, like, because it's like me giving Ronnie Coleman advice. I mean, I can't. I'm nobody to give him advice, but just my own personal opinion. I want to remember him as the 2001, 2002, 3 version of him, where he was just a beast with reckless condition and unbeatable, absolutely unbeatable. But when he turned around, then we see him, like, the last 2 proper shows I've seen him at now was in Ireland when he guest posed, which was just like, I'm not going to get into it. It was awful.
Yeah.
And the past show, the Masters there, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, when I seen him come out on stage, I actually kind of went, oh man, I was kind of upset for him. Because especially, I mean, if there's people getting into bodybuilding, like, I know this is only here saying, but if you're just getting into bodybuilding, you've obviously heard of Ronnie Coleman, you might go, oh, he's guest posing, and you see this, you will be disappointed. That's a fact, like.
Yeah.
You will be disappointed. I was disappointed. Luckily enough, I've seen him at his best to not kind of look too much into it, as it is a guest pose. I don't expect everyone to be in, obviously, unbelievable condition at a guest pose, but if you're going to guest, especially when you don't compete anymore, you should make some bit of an effort, I think, anyway. Especially for the fans, like,
I mean, I have to say that he was in shape in that his body fat was low. I mean, he still had veins running up through the top of his quads, which is kind of... He has a weird physique now in that his body fat is still reasonably low, but he just looks like he's fat.
Yeah.
And his waistline is just... It's got to be at least 45, 50 inches. It's just kind of ridiculous, but look, he's one of the greats. We'll try and remember him for when he was on stage in those first 8 Olympias, not count the last 2 that he did, especially not the last one, because that just was a gift to him to take 4th place. I think he should have been outside the top 10 that year. But look, Ronnie Coleman, any of the other guys, Samir Banu, Lee Haney was in the house, Dorian Yates was there, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, Rich Kaspari. There was a really, really good seminar that was on. You're going to find a lot more information on rxmuscle.com over the next week or so. They'll be posting videos, I'm sure. Definitely worth watching. A lot of stories that you may not have heard or been aware of in the past. And I'm going to be looking out for them myself, because I've only seen, like yourself, Craig, I've only seen little snippets here and there. So that's something I am looking forward to seeing, the Masters seminar with the Olympia greats. Craig, on that then, is there anything else you want to mention about the Masters weekend?
Maybe Joe Ferguson, I think, was it? I could be wrong now. Was this his debut?
This was his professional debut, absolutely was.
You've met him a few times, right?
Yeah, in Venice, in Gaul's Venice. Yeah. He's a bit of a character. He's a little bit over the top, but Look, he enjoys life immensely, and people typically say, "Oh, Jerome, you're a typical bodybuilder." This and that. He's just a happy-go-lucky type of dude. He placed 14th here at this, which, to be fair, isn't all that bad considering there's 32 guys.
Yeah.
So 14th in your first IFBB show, and considering who's in the show, it wasn't a bad placing. And again, Jerome is probably 41 at this stage, maybe 42. And his physique isn't a bad physique. It's just not IFBB Pro Open standard anymore. I think he deserved to turn pro about 5 or 6 years ago in probably the USA's, but he took a second place or a third place or something, which brings me forth, Craig, then to most recently the top 2 in each category at the NPC get pro status, which is ridiculous, because if you didn't win, why should you deserve to be on the Flex Pro stage, the Arnold Classic stage? I think it's, as much as you like to see some guys finally get their pro card after years and years of trying, there's one way to do it, and that's to win a competition, not necessarily the overall, but definitely your category. Placing second, that's like, you're not called Mr. Ireland if you place second, but you'll get a pro card in the US.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I suppose it's wanting to get more people into the sport, having more competitors in the smaller shows.
Course, yeah.
I presume it's probably all about money at some stage. I mean, you look at the Champions League in soccer. It started with champions in a league playing against each other, and the winner of all the, obviously, was the champions.
Yeah.
The champion of champions. Now it's the top 4 in England, the top 4 in Spain, top 3 in Italy. So you've I don't know, I think it's 64 teams or something along them lines.
Yeah.
That start in the Champions League. Yet there's only 15 leagues or something like that. So
money talks.
It's all about money. It's all about revenue.
Yeah. Like I said, it's with the addition of the bikini the last couple of years, the men's physique, the women's physique, definitely have a hell of a lot more competitors these days. And if they want to pump up the IFBB stage, because typically in male bodybuilding you're going to have 10, maybe 12 guys in the show. If you can add 4 or 5 guys who wouldn't have got the opportunity otherwise because they placed second, it might draw in another 40 or 50 people per show for the sake of the IFBB writing out a small pro card on a piece of paper and charging the guy, probably, I don't know how much the yearly rate is or the annual fee is, but you definitely have to pay to remain a pro and pay to retain your IFBB pro card. So it's like I said, it's a money machine. And
yeah, and in the last, I think a few shows ago, 3 or 4 shows ago, we were talking about shows only 6 or 7 in I think some of them were 202 or 212 category, and some of them were open, but I know there was at least 2 shows that had maybe 7, 8 in it. So I mean, if that promoter is trying to obviously promote his show, trying to make some money on it, you've 7 open class bodybuilders, maybe 10, say, 212 bodybuilders. People mightn't. Let's be honest, they're probably not going to travel unless they're in the vicinity. To a show like that. Whereas if there's 15 competitors, it might make for a better show. And the quality standard mightn't be as good, but it's more people in the show, and it looks better. And the part looks better if there's 15 fellas on stage as against 7.
Because at the end of the day, I suppose, as long as the guy who wins deserves to win.
Yeah.
Who cares if there's a couple of guys who came second down in 9, 10, 11, 12 place. It's...
Yeah.
Look, it is what it is. I don't think I'd be turning down my pro card if I got it by taking second place. So,
if I fumbled on the ground, I wouldn't care.
You don't look like Sean Ray. But Sean, a good Irish name, even though he spells it differently. But I'm just looking here, Craig, at the 2013 contest schedule. I mean, there's open events. You got the Arnold Classic, the IFBB Australia, FIBA Power, Arnold Classic Brazil, the Flex Pro Show in England on May 17th, the New York Pro is on May 25th, that's the following week, and then you got the Toronto Pro Super Show. Now that is the open events. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more listed. We got the Wings of Strength Chicago, IFBB Pro Bodybuilding Weekly Championships, Europa Dallas, the Nordic Pro is back Mr. Olympia obviously is still hanging around. Arnold Classic Europe will be there. That'll be 2 weeks after the Olympia. So Craig, you might get over to that one if you can't get out here to the States. Just go to Spain for the weekend in Madrid. Shrew Classic is on as well, and then of course the British Grand Prix, which will be held in Manchester in England. Craig, we saw a little bit of a post by Derek Farnsworth on RX Muscle, kind of stating his fact and being very correct and stating it that men's 212 has way less shows this year. In fact, there's only, I think, 5 shows which are open to anyone to enter. And you've got the Europa Show of Champions, the Flex Pro, the New York Pro, the Toronto Pro, the Wings of Strength, and then the Olympia. And that's your lineup for the year. The Shrew Classic is there as well, actually, my fault. British Grand Prix and Prague. So you're looking at about 7 shows in which you can just enter. And of course, you got to be either invited for the Arnold Classic or qualify for the Olympia. And I think you got to be invited to the Arnold Classic Europe as well. So they've really dropped the 212 way back down. I think there's 4 or 5 less shows this year than there was last year.
So does that mean if we're going on the same type of points program and all that stuff as last year, you're going to have the top 5 in the points and then your winners? That doesn't make for a very big stage of the Olympia, does it?
No, I mean, typically if a guy wins, he's probably going to pull out and not do any more shows for the rest of the year. But if you're Tony Freeman, you'll jump into as many shows as you can per year. Not that he's a 212 guy, but he's there.
And you can pretty much win. You can take home 10 grand.
That's it, Men's Physique, there's more Men's Physique shows than there are 212 bodybuilding shows this year, which probably is not a surprise, but it's definitely not something I'm happy about.
Yeah, me too.
But competitor-wise, more guys are going to show up for Men's Physique than they are for the bodybuilding, and, entry costs obviously builds revenue, and, look, it is what it is. Plus, actually, I believe that you got to pay a $10,000 sanctioning fee. So if you want to run an IFBB 212 show, you got to pay 10 grand to the IFBB. Then you got to output prize money. And unless you're getting asses in the seats, where do you get that money from?
Yeah, that's true.
If
it's all about the mighty buck at the end of the day.
There you go. So it's it is what it is. Women's bodybuilding, then, Craig, we've spoken about it before, about the lack of it. I think there's only 3 shows this year, other than the Arnold Classic and the Olympia. So that's really, really coming down a lot. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. With fitness, there's probably 5 shows. Basically, men's open bodybuilding is still kind of pushing on strong, and then men's physique and bikini is taking over. There must be a bikini competition on every weekend of the year. It's definitely the most popular in terms of competitors and the marketability, I suppose, for the athletes themselves, for the girls themselves. I'll call them athletes. It's a shame to see that female bodybuilding is indeed looking like it's going downhill and fast.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but again, we're like we said about 3 times already on the show. It's back to the bucks,
Yeah.
Yeah, and if your ordinary Joe decides to come with, say, your wife knows nothing about bodybuilding and you're big into it, and she decides to come to see a show with you, she's more likely to be kind of impressed, or maybe can what's the word I'm looking for now? Maybe can find herself saying, looking at a bikini, going, I could probably do that. That's not way out of the way. You know what I mean? Whereas if they see fitness or maybe even bodybuilding, which is pretty extreme, you might go, oh, that's horrible, or that's too much, or you know what I mean? They can probably relate to bikini a bit more. Not that bikini's easy to go to reach to get to that level. It's not, but they can relate a bit more. So they could maybe suck 1 or 2 more people in. You know what I mean?
You see, here's the funny thing about bikini. It's probably the easiest in terms of training and dieting, the easiest competition to enter, but probably the most reliant upon actual genetic shape. Because if you don't have the long legs, the long arms, the long torso, if your waist is 30 inches and you're a female, it doesn't matter how lean you get or how good the rest of your body looks, it's not happening. Whereas with bodybuilding, you can slap on a couple of pounds here and there. I mean, look at Branch Warren. He's got one of the least pleasing physiques in the sport as far as I'm concerned. But he's won Ireland Classics. He's placed second at the Olympia. You know, there's kind of ways around it when it comes to adding muscle. But for the bikini girls, it's very much genetic. You either have it or you don't. The one exception to that, of course, being Sonia Gonzalez, who won the first Bikini Olympia, who I've no idea how the hell she won that Bikini Olympia, because her physique to me just doesn't look anywhere like the rest of the girls. And, you know, sure enough, the last couple of years she hasn't really done quite well. But it's, I don't know, each to their own, I suppose. And, you know, everyone will find their own niche or their own way into the sport. And like you said, most females can probably relate a little bit more to bikini than they can to female bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I mean, like the bikini, it's like we were saying about women relating to it. It's so popular. It obviously it's the biggest as far as numbers go. Competing bodybuilding through any show. If there's 10 competing in the men's open, there'll probably be 20 in the bikinis. So
oh yeah,
it's going to eat up a lot of time, obviously. Because there's so many, and I mean they must be handing out pro cards up to the top 5 at this stage, like in bikini, because there's so many of them. Like,
yeah, because if you look at bikini at national level, there's probably 7 categories, A all the way down to E or F, and it's based upon height. And all the winners got it. I don't know if all the second place people got it as well, but that's 14 pro cards from one competition. Whereas male bodybuilding up until 2 years ago, you would get. It used to be just the overall, you know. Imagine that, just the overall. You got 3 pros per year coming out of the NPC, and now you've got 20 girls from one competition. I don't know. Look, again, at the end of the day, I wouldn't say no to the pro card, but I definitely think they're clearly just advocating, well, money talks, and look, it is what it is. But anyway, we won't get too aggravated about that fact.
Yeah.
But speaking of the pros, Craig, the small list was posted up on RX Muscle there recently, and I thought it was quite interesting that, you know, there's probably 7 or 8 guys on this list I'll speak about in a moment, and there's probably another 20 guys who actually got their pro cards through second place in different weight classes and whatever else, but you will recognise some of the names here for sure. You got Stefan Havlik, who won the Arnold Amateur this year, Antoine Villan, who's the Canadian guy who is kind of popular on the boards. He won the Canadian Championships. Shelby Starnes won the Masters Nationals. We see him a lot on the RX Muscle forums. Brian Yersky won the Nationals. Dallas McCarver won the North Americans. Dan Decker, North American Masters. I think he was 35 and over. Jeff Beckham, Team Universe, which is supposed to be a natural competition. I'm not quite convinced about that. Keith Williams, also a guy who won at the Team Universe. He did the Masters there. He could not get inside the top 4 or 5 at the USA's. So he said, look, I'll go and compete with the so-called natural guys at the Universe. And sure enough, he wins a Masters class there, and he gets his pro card. And then you got Darren Glenn, who wins the USA overall. Now, Craig, what do you think about the Team Universe? And just to give anyone an idea there why it's called Team Universe, it's basically the American Universe qualifier. So if you want to enter into the Mr. Universe competition, and it's called Team Universe because you would be part of the team that would go and compete in the Universe. Now, it's supposed to be a natural show. Natural to those guys is obviously not what I classify as natural, and Keith Williams is clearly not a natural bodybuilder. Not many bodybuilders are natural, which is, you know, part and parcel with the sport. But for a guy who competes in the standard open shows, NPC levels, can't get quite to where he wants to be. Did he take a shortcut, Craig? Did he kind of cheat the system by going into the Universe and placing in the Masters and taking a pro card?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, fair play to the guy. He's seen a loophole and he took it. But is it right? Probably not. But well done the same? Probably. You know, the thing is, it's probably a standard test, maybe a urine test or a blood test to check for X, Y, or Z. Now, I'm not big into gear or how to mask it, but there's obviously fantastic masking agents out there at the moment. So he just needs to get on one of them, maybe for a few weeks before he has to do his blood test. You know what? And then he probably passes the exam and off he goes. He wins.
Yeah.
You know, is he natural? Hell no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But you know what? He passed a test at the right time. So, you know,
yeah, I'm not sure if to do a urine test or a polygraph. And I mean, a polygraph, as much as it's kind of the gold standard in telling the truth or not, you know, you can beat those machines. Not that I've ever tried it or done it, but, you know, the word on the street is that you can beat a polygraph. Plus, if you can convince yourself of something, it'll show up on the polygraph test. That, look, if I think I'm a woman, maybe I am a woman. And if Keith Williams thinks he didn't take any gear to get to where he was, then maybe he thinks he didn't do anything wrong. But if it's a urine test, that's fairly easy to do. Just bring in someone else's urine and away you go. And, you know, I know a guy, actually, I work with a guy, and he does some testing around the NCAA, so the college level here in the States for football, and he'll go in and they'll do urine tests, and he said you can clearly see that the guys you're taking urine samples for are juicing their eyeballs, but you can only take what you're given, and, you know, it is what it is, and you know, don't hit the player, hit the game type of crap. But look, Keith Williams, he's a IFBB pro. He has competed since then, I believe. I'm not quite sure how well he did, but he is a pretty good bodybuilder, to be fair. I think he can hang around up there in the top 10 in the smaller shows, but I just don't think he should have competed in the team universe, which is supposed to be a natural show. But Craig, out of those guys there, I mean, you've Dallas McCarver, who's 21, 22 years old. He's an IFBB pro.
He's probably got the best upside of any of them because of his age. Yeah. And he did look incredible when he won, in fairness. He looked incredible, like.
Yeah, he's the thing is, he's got a lot of space to grow. If he's 21, 22 years old, there was a picture posted of him a couple of weeks ago where he just broken 300 pounds. Now, for a guy who's 21, 22 years old to break 300 pounds, there's only been a few who've done it in the past, and Trey Brewer would probably be the most notable of those in recent years. And Trey went on to do nothing. He never even turned pro. The best he ever did, I think, was third or fourth at a national level show. He did win the Excalibur in California, which is considered one of the best local shows in the country. As a young man, 21 years old, he was a beast, but something went wrong with him, and it didn't work. So hopefully Dallas McCarver will have a slightly better future than Trey Brewer, and he'll continue to go on to be a fantastic pro. Because if you look back in time, Craig, you know, Sean Ray, Lee Priest, and Rich Gaspari are probably the only pros who turned pro probably before they were 22, 23 years old. And all three of those guys went on to have fantastic careers. Rich Gaspari placing second at the Olympia, Sean Ray doing the same. Lee Priest, obviously a little bit controversial in recent years with his move to the PDI organisation and all that kind of stuff. But again, you can't fault the guy. If the 212 category was around back when he was competing, he would have done some damage.
Oh, yeah. He'd have been a multiple-year winner of it. Definitely.
Unbelievable. I was watching some of his training videos actually the last few days, and the guy's physique is just, it was phenomenal, you know. For a guy who was 215 on stage or thereabouts, he had 5'4" and still had measurements, and he makes the comment about having the same size arms as guys who are 6 feet tall, and in his words, they're pathetic. That's how he pronounced it. You know, you can't argue with the guy. His legs were crazy, his arms were crazy, his tricep was nuts, his abs were always in control. You know, the only thing he didn't have going for him was his height, and he can't do anything about that. He had crazy calves, did very, very little flaws whatsoever, actually, to be fair, other than maybe his outgoing personality. Yeah. But, you know, you rub people the wrong way and you end up out in the streets. Not that he's living on the streets or anything, but he's out of the IFBB, and there doesn't look like there's a return for him anytime soon, if ever. And whether he want to or not,
there's always talk. He's always kind of hitting at it, but he's never going to come back. Like, I don't think so. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's he got to gain from it, you know?
Yeah, that's it.
What's he got to gain?
I mean, going back to the Trey Brewer, I think what was wrong with Trey Brewer is everyone was going about this kid who's 300 pounds, who's 320 pounds. He loved that talk, and he decided, like, keep beating and get heavier and heavier. People will be talking about me. He earned himself a BSN contract through it, because it's the next big thing.
Yeah.
He was too fat, and no matter if he had 40 weeks to get in shape, he probably hadn't got the mental attitude for the time he needed to get in shape. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure he got advice saying, right, we're going to do it 20 weeks out, we're going to start dieting. He probably thought, no, I'm not going to do it. All I need is 12 weeks. And some of his showings were actually embarrassing, like.
Oh, terrible.
For a fella that had so much potential, had some of the muscle mass. He just had not the mental attitude to go with it. Absolutely not.
Yeah, for any of the younger guys out there listening, search Trey Brewer on Google. You'll see some fantastic looking physique shots and crazy legs, and then you'll see some fat pictures. And the fat pictures, unfortunately, some of them were actually stage shots, which is a bit of a disappointment. But like you said, Craig, he had potential coming out of his ears.
Yeah.
He just never realised it, you know. It was such a shame. And the one guy who kind of was coming up at the same time with him was Evan Santapani, and look where Evan is now. He's still kind of struggling to fine-tune his conditioning here and there, but in terms of doing well and being a good dude in terms of the sponsorship and the companies that he works for, you know, Evan is kind of the working man's bodybuilder. He's the blue-collar guy. He's up there in the northeast of the States, kind of a home to you, or your second home of homes. He's a nice guy in person, in video. He seems very down-to-earth, straightforward. And he doesn't seem to be sitting back and resting on his laurels. He is definitely trying to improve. And every time we've seen him, considering he's only done about 4 or 5 competitions at kind of the national level or professional level, he has got some issues in terms of his fullness and his conditioning. But I think that he is still going to make a career out of this. He's only 27, 28 years old at the moment, so he's got plenty of time left to go.
That's all he is.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, again, going back to, like I said, about Ronnie Coleman earlier on, if I could give him advice, it would be to actually do an extra show or 2 a year. Not just one.
Hold in on it, yeah.
Or maybe to try and get in a third show if you can. Like, even a smaller show. You know, you can't beat stage practice. Like, you just can't beat it.
Yeah, I'd agree. He definitely needs to get his conditioning down. He needs to know what works. And, of course, from time to time, from show to show, things will change and circumstances will change and your approach might change slightly, but definitely practice makes perfect, and he doesn't have enough practice under his belt at the moment, and that's what he needs to do. Like you said, hit a few small shows and then go hit the Iron Classic. I'm sure he'll get an invite for that. Take first or second in a local show and make it to the Olympia again next year, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, if he gets it right, he's got the potential to be top 3 in the Olympia. If he gets it right, the potential to win the Iron Classic if he gets it right, but today, but like you said, he's young.
Do you think he can make the top 3 this year, like 2013?
Oh, maybe a bit early for him, but in time he can. Maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
I still think it's a bit early for him. The competition out there is still a bit too much. He can get better than the actual existing competition, because the existing competition, they're a bit well, I won't say they're older, but they're late 30s, early 40s, and they're probably going to start to, well, besides Phil Heath, obviously, but everyone else is really in mid to late 30s at least, and he's got years on him, so, and age on his side.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Phil Heath is the current champ, 2-time champ, and he's still only 31 or 32, you know?
Yeah, 32 years old, like, he's the same age as me, and he's Mr. Olympia, which is insane, like.
If you look back at Lee Haney won 8 Mr. Olympias, and he retired at 32.
Really?
Yeah, so from, I think 25 was his first one, and all the way up. And then another exception on the other end of that was Vince Taylor. Vince didn't start lifting weights, Craig, until he was 27.
Yeah, I heard that actually, yeah.
I mean, there's no wonder. When I met the guy this year at the Olympia, he looked phenomenal. Now, he was in a long sleeve shirt, but he looked like he was still in shape, and the guy is 56 or 57 now.
And I believe it 4 years since he started lifting weights, he got his pro card after he started, so that's not a bad turnaround.
Crazy. Phil Heath is another example of that. A guy who played college basketball and was probably 170 pounds, and then he blows up to 270 in less than 6-7 years, and he's Mr. Olympia. Kind of crazy. Some people just have it and some people don't, and unfortunately there's a lot of people out there that have it that don't realise it, or they don't care enough to realise it. It's such a shame to see talent go to waste. Now, Craig, there was another forum post or a thread that was started on one of the forums, not sure, and basically it was talking about will there be another Ronnie Coleman, and a lot of the guys were very much in agreement that if there is another Ronnie Coleman, he's probably playing a different sport. He's probably playing football, or he's playing rugby, or he's playing some other sport where he can actually utilise his speed, his power, his genetic potential to actually make a decent living versus struggle up through the bodybuilding world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's some linebacker, well, not linebackers as such, but there's some real big running backs and tight ends who just have like crazy physiques, and that's with all the cardio that they're doing as well. You know, if they're really honed in and just bodybuilding, how much or how big could some of those guys get?
Yeah. I mean, you've the likes of Rob Gronkowski there, who's an England Patriot.
Yeah.
He's a tight end, like, and he's broken like touchdown records this year and last year. I think he's 6'6" and about 280, and the boy can run, like.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy to see someone that big running that fast. It's like, it shouldn't be possible at all. Like, but you know what? He does it, and he's making serious coin now. Like, he started making the basic NFL starting rate was, and he came in a great year last year, and he was rewarded with a massive contract, like you say.
Yeah.
If next Ronnie Coleman is around, you say he's definitely playing a sport where he's going to make big bucks.
Yeah. You see, it's I will actually, just going back to the Gronkowski there, that last year I was here in the States when the Combine was on, the NFL Combine, and I watched that thing. I think it was 4 days straight, and you're watching the quarterbacks come in, the linebackers and the running backs, and you're watching them go through all the different drills and their 40-yard and their bench and whatever it is, and the broad jump, and just to see guys who are literally 300 pounds, aged 21, 22 years old, moving as fast as they could. You know, as much as you guys will sit back home and say, American footballers are all just big fat guys, you go at 300 pounds and do some of the stuff that these guys are able to do. It's definitely something you need to see in person, or at least up close to kind of appreciate it. And like you said, Craig, with the tight ends and the running backs, then you've got Darren Sproles, who's 5'6", probably 185, 190, but my God, that guy can move and take hits. You know?
Yeah, he sure can. Like, I mean, I seen some of them guys there, and they're doing like plyometric box jumps to a 5-foot plyometric box.
Yeah.
From a dead stop.
I know.
Boom. They bend down into squatting position, and up they go, and on top of it. That's not. I need a ladder to climb up that, like.
Yeah, the thing is with the box jumps, a lot of people go, what's the point of the box jump? A box jump is pretty much a true reflection of absolute power. You know, if you can shift your weight directly upward without a run, how high you can get up is a true testament how high you can jump, how much power you can generate in a snap, you know, and that's real important when you're a running back or you're an offensive lineman. You know, you got to be able to move as quick as you can from the gun, and it's it's a lot of American football. I've fallen in love with it big time since being here. But anyways, we'll get back to the bodybuilding.
Just see one more point there on the plyometric box jumps. If you Google, guys, Google Derek Poundstone 48-inch box jump. He does a plyometric box 48 inches, which is 4 feet from a dead stop, and he's 330 pounds, guys.
Yeah,
that's a huge man.
But the thing is, he is about 6'4" though, 6'5", isn't he?
Yeah, he's quite tall, alright.
So his hip crease will be a lot higher than the average. Like, I mean, for me, I'd have no problem getting up onto a 48-inch box jump. But for a guy who's his weight, that's really where the like you said, he's 330 pounds or something. To be able to lift himself that high off the floor in a snap, you know, that's pretty damn good. But you'll see some guys doing 60-inch box jumps. You know, 6 inches is 5 feet. That's a huge difference. As much as it's only 12 inches between 48 inches and 60 inches, those 12 inches, that's a lot of extra force you got to generate. And to be able to do a 60-inch box jump is pretty damn impressive. So
yeah, it's unbelievable. The 60-inch box jump is incredible. Like,
yeah. But anyway, Craig, we'll move on. So we've gone through our new pros in 2012. We've also had a quick a review of the Masters Olympia, which went over without a hitch. Dexter Jackson, of course, taking the win there. And up next, Craig, is goal setting. Now, guys, when we talk about goal setting, typically we're talking about in terms of your health and your fitness and your bodybuilding and your training. Now, you might apply this to other sports, but for me anyway, for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to be looking at goal setting in terms of just general health and wellness in the gym environment. So we're talking about maybe dropping some weight, building some muscle, working on your 1 rep max, kind of stuff like that. Craig, how are you going to approach this one?
Yeah, I kind of was tipping away at it for the last few days, writing down goals where I want to hit and stuff. Now, ideally, I'd like to keep my body fat in the kind of under the sub 14% kind of range.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get up to the 100 kg mark by this time next year.
And what are you at the moment?
I'm 95 exactly now.
So another 5 kilos. So you got
another 5 kgs in a year. Now I know that's a lot to do. I mean, but I'd be happy with it. If I could, I'd be delighted. Like,
yeah.
You know, I'm gonna eat my way there. So, you know what? I'll try. I'll give it everything I got. If I don't reach it, I don't reach it. But what I'm gonna do is set myself then smaller goals. I'm gonna set quarterly goals. You know, so I want to be, let's say, 96.5 by March. You know, 97.5 June. You know, this kind of way.
Yeah.
Small little goals to reach them nice and slowly, like 1 kg at a time, 1.5 kgs at a time. So small little steps, and that will lead to my big step, hopefully. You know, I could get up to 100 kgs in another couple of months if I wanted, but it would just be fat and useless, like.
You see, that's the thing. It's, you know, if you're gaining fat to say that you're in a bulking phase, you're really just in a getting fat phase. You know,
Yeah.
You don't need to gain much body fat to. Well, technically you don't need to gain any body fat, but typically you're going to gain a couple of pounds because you have to be in an excess. But you know, you'll hear guys, oh, I'm 250 versus 210, but I'm in my bulking phase, and then they strip down and wear it, they're probably 2 pounds heavier than they were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, all that gaining is great fun, but I mean, you're looking at extra weeks of cardio. I mean, like, obviously when I did my first show, it was great and I done this, but there was a lot of mistakes I made, but you know, that was my first show and I learned a lot from it. So I'd never start out at 17-18% again, never, like.
Yeah.
It was too high, and I took me 16 weeks of fucking torture. So, like, I'd love to be able to do my diet in 10 to 12 weeks rather than the 16 to 18. Like,
that's
it was too much.
You know, every 2 or 3 pounds or whatever, that's an extra week you're adding to your workload.
Yeah.
And that's an extra week of cardio that you don't want to be doing, where potentially you could be losing muscle. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
So as much as it might be more workload to lose it, you're also potentially risking losing some of the muscle that you have gained. So I'd be very much the same, Craig. I definitely don't believe in gaining body fat just for the sake of it. I mean, you saw some pictures recently of myself, and that's probably as fat as I get. Now, obviously, I'm not ripped or lean as lean can be, but you know, I wouldn't call myself fat in those pictures, and I'm probably about 198, 199 in those pictures in pounds, so about 90 kilos. So again, I'd like to get up probably another. Realistically, if I could gain another 3 or 4 pounds of muscle in the next year, I'd be very happy with that. And 3 or 4 pounds on my frame, it should be fairly noticeable, especially for myself. Because at the end of the day, I'm not competing. So, well, with myself, I am. And as long as I can see the changes and feel the changes, that's all that really matters to me. But it's
Absolutely.
The body fat percentage, again, guys, if you're not aware of what you're at, or you want to know what your body fat is, don't just go and make a guess and assumption. Must be 12% because I can see one line in my abs. No, everyone is different. Go and get it done. Get it checked by somebody who knows how to check it. And like Craig said, if you're setting goals in terms of gaining weight or losing weight, look at the goal date. If it's 6 months down the line or a year down the line, divide in X into 12 months. If you want to lose 30 pounds, how many pounds per month do you have to lose? Then break it down, how many pounds per week. So on a week-to-week basis, you can tell yourself, yeah, I'm ahead or I'm behind or whatever the case may be. You do not want to wait till you're halfway through your original goal date and you haven't dropped 25% of the weight you should have, or in Craig's case, you haven't been training hard enough, you haven't been ingesting the protein, you haven't been building any muscle, and you know you're 6 months down the line and your body weight is exactly the same. You know, what did you change? Absolutely nothing. 6 months is a long time to not see any difference. It's a long time.
Yeah, that's a lot of hard lifting in the gym to get no real result out of it, like, you know.
Yeah, 6 months. Because you can achieve a hell of a lot in 6 months, be it, I mean, not nearly as much in terms of how much muscle you can gain as how much body fat you can lose, obviously, but your physique can change quite a lot. If you were to gain a pound or two of muscle in 6 months and drop 3 or 4 pounds, you're going to look a hell of a lot different for those 2 extra pounds in the right direction in 4 or 5 in the opposite direction. It's, lower body fat levels will typically make you look better, look bigger, unless you just like being that guy who looks big in a t-shirt versus a guy who's actually big and muscular. I don't like to hide behind baggy shirts and pretend that I'm 220 or 225. I'm 198, 199, 200 at the end of the day, and look, it is what it is. Do I want to get bigger? Of course. But I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to lie to anyone else. I'm not going to make up a number here on air with anyone else. I'm trying to get better. Everyone else is trying to get better in some way, shape or form. And Craig, you want 5 kilos. I want 3 or 4 pounds of body fat. 3 or 4 pounds of muscles. And if I can achieve that, I'll be happy. Anything more will be a bonus. But that is the small, long-term goal.
Yeah, because my having a 6 foot frame, what I am now, like when I dieted down the last time, no, I was happy with my conditioning and all that, and I looked okay, but I can't be competing like that. I with a 6 foot frame, no way. I can't be competing at 77 kg, 76 kgs, like no way.
Plus the other side of it as well. You got to look at it. It was your first show, and you did it completely naturally.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
And there's a big difference between training naturally and training assisted, especially when you're coming to losing the body weight. If you're stripping body fat and you're still gaining muscle, that's a huge difference than trying to maintain any muscle that you may have built while doing it naturally.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, like there was 32 of us in that show, and I know, like for a fact, there was at least 7 guys that I beat out that were juicing, like, and have been juicing for like years, and this goes to show, like, what the fuck are they doing, like?
Yeah.
They must be training like fucking douchebags. They must be eating like shite, and they must talk. And one of them actually did say it to me, like, I'm taking X, Y, and Z. So I don't need to do anything else. I'm like, yeah, good look at that dude. And it shows. And he was pissed off when I beat him, and he wouldn't even shake my hand when he walked past me. But you know what? Just laugh at him. Go, Jesus, dude. And like, to me, I just kind of just laughed at the guy because I made the top. The first cut, and he didn't. Now, mind you, a lot of other guys didn't make it that I knew, but this guy especially, he was kind of shooting the shit with me for months coming up to it, saying that I should be doing this, I should be taking this coming up to the show. I'm like, no, bro, I'm okay, And he was like, okay, you're gonna be beaten. No, if I came last, so be it. But you know what? I beat out 17 guys, and I know at least 10 of them were juicing, like. And I was talking to them in the hall when we were backstage, and people were saying, I'm doing on this, I'm on that, blah, blah, blah. People are open about it, and so they should be too. But the fact that it just goes to show, it's not all about the drugs. Like, you still have to eat, you still have to do the hard training, and if you're not doing that, the best drugs in the world won't give you a body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was actually another video I watched of Lee Priest the last few days. He was doing a seminar, and somebody in the crowd asked him, does he do steroids? And he goes, well, yeah, I do. And he goes, but believe me, steroids are not the complete answer to the equation, and that, every sport at the top level has them. But just because you take steroids, he said, believe me, I cannot run 100 meters in 10 seconds, and I cannot throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. You got to have that talent there. Just taking some steroid isn't going to do it for you. Now, of course, it will help you, but you have to have the genetic potential, you have to have the drive, you have to work hard on it, and hard work pays off. And if you have a bit of an assist along the way, that's fine, but at least be honest about it within the confines of the community. Of course, you might not want to tell your boss or your mom or your dad or whoever that you're taking steroids, but look, at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me in the slightest if someone is or isn't, as long as they're honest with me about it. Because who are you cheating? Who are you cheating? But look, it is what it is. Your first showing, like we said, it's obviously, if you add some more muscle to the frame, it'll go a hell of a lot better. It'll be a long way. It'll be much improved.
Yeah.
But it was your first time, completely natural, nothing other than whole foods and protein and your vitamins and whatever else.
That's it.
So just anyone out there who feels that they need to go down the line of steroids, you can go down it. But if you're 17, 18, 19 years of age and you're listening to this, please don't.
Yeah.
Wait till you're very serious about it, and don't say, "Oh, because I have my protein powder twice a day, I'm serious." Uh, Wait till there's a true reason, then make a wise decision. Speak to people who do it. If you're going to do it, get it from a good, reputable source. Don't order from China on the www.steroidsforcheap.com. You know, it's that's a fake website, by the way, guys, just in case. You know, it's a choice. It's 100% a person's choice to do it. Do or don't, it's up to you. But you know, if you're a teenager, train for 4, 5, 6 years, get the best out of your potential that you can, then maybe consider it. But it's not the be all and end all. Plus, at the end of the day, unless you're going to be doing it for a career, unless you're playing football or you're playing rugby professionally or whatever sport that you're playing, how much is it going to benefit you in your day to day? Will it make you feel better? Probably. Will you be bigger and stronger? Probably. But you know, there's a cost with it too. You know, not necessarily the health aspect, of course, that's a concern, but the actual financial cost. Are you willing to make the sacrifice? Can you get your hands on enough money to buy it, or are you going to kind of revert to doing something that you shouldn't be doing to get those extra couple of €100 every couple of months? You know, so teenagers do not. That's my advice anyway.
Yeah, do you know what? And it was very refreshing to see, because as bodybuilding, is getting more popular in Ireland, obviously drugs are going to become kind of part and parcel to go with that too, and that's expected. But sorry,
I'll let it die. Right?
Yeah, there was a post put on Facebook a few weeks back, and it was so refreshing. It was about, when should I take a cycle after coming off a cycle? How long should I? So, and it was by a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Obviously not going to name any names. Most people who know what I'm talking about anyway. And it was so refreshing to see some of the best bodybuilders in Ireland, like Brian Hickey and Hugh O'Donovan, to go, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. You should wait till you're 23, 24, 25, reach your kind of potential or close to your potential with naturally, and then maybe an assist. Because if you don't reach the kind of natural strength and the natural what your body's capable of, you'll probably never reach it when you're assisted.
Yeah.
You know, and they said a lot of it. They gave a lot of good advice, which was great to see, about burning out by the time you're 30 and so on. It was great to see it. It really, really was. It was so refreshing, and I hope a lot of the younger guys, because there's a lot of you there, and you've brilliant physiques as it is, like brilliant, but it can all go downhill very fast. So just on what Colin said, when you do decide to go to someone who's done it, someone who's older, you know, someone who's probably a champion, get some advice off him or her, and do it properly. There's ways to do it properly, like anything in the world, and there's ways to do it wrong. And doing something like that wrong could fuck up a lot of stuff later on down the line. So do it properly, do your proper PCT, do everything down the line, do it perfectly. But only do it when you're ready and when your body is ready. Like when you're 21, when you're 20, you could lend me testosterone, you could lend Colin testosterone, still have enough to grow. So you should use your youth to your advantage until you haven't got it anymore. Maybe mid-20s, probably the best time to think about it, if you're going to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic in which, you know, you can go back and forth and what's the moral standing on it all. And at the end of the day, it's a choice, and the person will get to choose for themselves. But make sure it is your choice, and you don't feel like you're being forced into it by your gym training partner or some guy at the gym saying, "Oh, you've got great potential. You should, you know, take this and that, whatever else." You know, it's just be safe. That's the most important. Enjoy training, enjoy developing your physique, and if you take the next step, then fine, but do it safely. But again, Craig, going back to the goal setting in terms of anyone out there who's listening, if they're looking to improve anything, set yourself a goal date. So if you're going to run a marathon, you know when the date is, work your way back. If it's 20 weeks out, work your way back. How many miles you need to do week 1, week 2, week 5, week 10, whatever it is. I've currently got a lady who's training for the PF Chang's Phoenix Marathon here in January 20th, I believe it is. So she's 5 weeks out, and this past weekend she did 17.2 miles. So she's pretty much on track to, well actually she's very much on track to hit that 21 and a half thereabouts before the actual race. It'll be her second one, but the first one since having kids, if I'm correct. And believe it or not, she's actually an Irish lady who is now living out here in Phoenix due to her husband's work, I believe. But you know, it's never too late to start something. If you want to go and do a 10k, a 5k, a half marathon, a triathlon, go out there, find somebody, get the advice. Don't just presume that because somebody has done it before themselves that they're able to give you advice for your own training. That's kind of where a trainer comes into play, that they can adapt and modify training routines for an individual and not just relay the same routine to you because that's the one they did for themselves. You know, everyone is different and you got to adapt with that. It's probably the most important thing you can do is adapt as your body adapts. Don't just sit back and say, well, week 6 said I have to do 15 miles but my knee is killing me.
Yeah.
Don't do 15 miles. You know,
Yeah,
try and
exactly.
be a week or two ahead of the plan so that if you do have a bad week, it doesn't kill you. You know, it doesn't ruin your whole training cycle and you're not trying to overdo it then the following week. You know, listen to your body, have a couple of weeks planned where if you do have a slow week that you've got time to pick it up, and obviously try and get there before the actual race day so that you're ready and you're not killing yourself on race day to do 26.2 miles or whatever your sport or your chosen athletic endeavour is. It's about you at the end of the day. Achieve what you want to achieve. Don't sit back and listen to other people tell you that you cannot do it. You know, it's a very personal thing. The journey that you're on, Craig, in training and trying to get up to 225 and my own, and we look at guys training in the gyms that we go to, and you see time after time after time they come in and they go out and they go home, and 4 years later they haven't changed and they wonder why, and because they haven't changed anything. They're doing the same thing. They're eating the same crappy food, they're eating the smaller quantities than they should be, or maybe they're eating more food than they should be and they think that all this extra cardio is going to burn off all those extra calories. You know, get everything right. Have your training in place, have your diet in place, your nutrition plan should complement your training, and your training should be the most important aspect when you consider what you're going to eat. If you're going to eat a bowl of rice, why? Does it have a purpose? And if it does, good. If it doesn't, don't have it. Don't make sacrifices just because you're in a social environment where your friends are like, oh, you have to have a few drinks, we're on a night out. If you don't want to drink, you don't want to drink. You know, take a step back. And again, you know, set goals for yourselves. They can be achieved. Achieve them. If you need help along the way, go and find somebody to help you. You might spend some money on it, but definitely it's very much money well spent. When you cross that finish line, you'll be very happy for it.
Yeah. I mean, like, something that's been mentioned on the show many times, like you touched earlier, is like if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And that's why them fellas were in the gym for 4 or 5 years and they're maybe 2 kgs heavier, maybe a small more muscle. I mean, they're thinking they're great, or else they're wondering why bodybuilding isn't for me. It's my genetics. It's name your excuse. It's not. It absolutely isn't. It's because you probably didn't get good advice, or maybe you did and you didn't listen. What else is you probably you don't have the will or the want to really change, because you might have been told it's going to take this amount of effort in this much time, and you thought, hell with it. Now, to me, I don't see the point in going to the gym for the sake of going to the gym. For me, you have to have an end goal, or even some goals, even short goals. And getting a good trainer, I think, is very important. And like, obviously, Colin's a great trainer, and I consider myself a decent enough trainer. So, I mean, recently I had a woman come to me, and she's been doing 5K and 10Ks for best part of 2.5 years, pretty much without a break. And she's got down to 22 minutes, and she was delighted, and blah, 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 but she couldn't break the 22-minute mark, no matter what she did. And I kind of went, what did you do different? She's like, well, nothing, I'm still doing the same routine. I'm like, okay, so what do you expect to change? You're going to get faster overnight? I'm like, power comes from your muscle. Have you increased your muscle mass in your legs, in your shoulders, in your arms? No. Well, what do you expect to change then? I goes, look, give me 12 weeks, which was our next 5K. I goes, but I don't want you running at all in the 5 weeks. It was just pretty much, or in the 12 weeks. We pretty much did legs twice a week, focusing on the glutes, especially because they were very weak. Because every time she squatted, she kind of leaned, or she she lunged, she kind of leaned in a bit, and I could see her glutes were a bit weak, so we focused on them a bit, with doing your leg presses, extensions, leg curls, so on, your squats, whatever. So she was happy with it. She was very, very anxious about it, going, geez, I haven't read in X amount of time. And I got her to do 2K the week coming up on the treadmill, of course, the week coming up to the run. I did her that twice on the Monday and on the Tuesday. We kind of did a bit of a carb load or whatever. And then on the Saturday, she did her 5K, and she came into me like a child on the Monday morning going, I can't believe it. You know, she did it in 19 minutes, you know, which is a 3-minute jump from what she did to what she couldn't do. You know, 3 minutes in a 5K is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and she was thanking me, and I'm like, you know, you did the hard work. I just told you what to do, like I tell everyone else. Some people either take the advice, some people don't. You obviously took it, and you did what you were told, and look, you reap the rewards for it. But that's like anything in life, guys. If you've a trainer and he tells you or she tells you what to do, and you don't listen, that's the trainer's fault. Don't come back blaming the trainer because he's a bad trainer or she's a bad trainer. I don't like this, I don't like that. You want to do what works, you do what works. Simple as that.
What you said there, Craig, about the person putting in the work, and you know, at the end of the day they can choose to take your advice or not to take it. I have a client at the moment who is, her first and foremost is to drop weight, and at this stage she's probably, I think it's 34 pounds down, and she said to me on our last session during the week that last week, that, you know, this is the lightest I've been in 20 years. And I said, well, you know, you're going to get lighter, you're going to get way down, we've got another 25 pounds to go, it's just a matter of sticking with it.
Yeah.
You know, without you I wouldn't have been able to do this. And I said, well, that's not true, because you're the person who did all the work. You just needed somebody to be there to support you and give you the advice, and, you know, make the changes when we need to. If we see a problem with the cardio or we see a problem with the foods, you know, jump in and make the changes. And having somebody else take that responsibility is probably one of the most important aspects of having a trainer, that you can rely on them and you can say, hey, I'm doing this, it's not working, what should I change? And if they're experienced enough, they should be able to, within a week or so, they should be able to get you back on track, whether they fiddle with your food or change your cardio up a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's the person, it's the client that does all of the work. I just stand by and tell them what to do. And, you know, I'll say that to everyone that I have. If you want to lose it, you need to want to lose it, and you need to put in the work. Coming to see me once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, 3 times a week, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm standing beside you, I'm not lifting the weight for them, I'm not doing their cardio. But if they take the advice of somebody who's gone through it before with other people, and somebody who can adapt, anybody can achieve pretty much anything that they want. And this one particular lady came to me hoping to lose 15 pounds by January 1st. And like I said, she's on 34 pounds now, and we've still got 4 weeks left. Well, Craig, that then pretty much brings us to the end of the show. What we've got left will be the interview with Mike Pulcinella, which we did a couple of weeks ago. But before we go there, Craig, actually, if we go back 3 or 4 weeks when the RIBBF Nationals were on, Corey Green was in town, George Farrar was in town. A seminar was done on the Saturday before the competition. It was videoed. It became very public for a couple of different reasons. But all in all, how did you think that the seminar went itself?
It went very well. If anyone wants to see it or hasn't seen it, go on to Irish Muscle TV or irishmuscle.ie. You can see it there, or just search it on YouTube and you'll find it. But yeah, it went very well. It was a good seminar. I did learn a good few points from it, which were very interesting. You know, I didn't agree with everything George said, to be fair. He mentioned something about drinking too much water when you're off season. That kind of bothered me a bit, because water is pretty much the most essential nutrient in the body. So anyway, look, he's probably right. You know, it's just from my own advice or my own type of training. I always drink a lot of water anyway. Secondly, another thing that bothered me was Kai Green. Now, it wasn't Kai Green's seminar. I emphasise that, but if he's going to be there, I think he should show respect. Yeah. Now, Kai was eating food like for pretty much 3/4 of the actual seminar. What he did have to say was calling out Norman, basically calling him a parasite and the whole rest of it, and we all kind of know about that. But like, I found it a bit disrespectful. People like paid decent money to go see this seminar. No, like I said, it was George Farrar seminar, not George and Kai seminar. But if he's going to be there And if you have a microphone in front of you and you're asking questions or you're answering questions, at least have the decency to not talk with your mouth full. To be fair, it's a bit much, to be honest. Now, I did like George. He answered questions really clearly, and he answered a lot of good questions about X, Y, and Z. But he kind of took a few stabs at Palumbo. I think he did anyway, indirectly, and about the keto diet and so on and so forth. He also mentioned, like they said about the water, there was a few things I didn't agree with, but I did agree with a good few parts of it at the same time, which is very good. And like, he not letting Kai Green not bulk up, which is what we touched on about half an hour ago about bulking and stuff. He didn't let Kai get too fat, and that's why Kai came in very, very good at the Olympia. And again, like, we can all take stock of that, like not getting too heavy in the off season and so on. So, but yeah, it was a good seminar. You mentioned something to me, Colin. We were just texting each other at the time about it, but you mentioned something about, and I'll let you elaborate on it then, about exactly there's more than one way to skin a cat. And now, can you elaborate on that? I know what you're talking about, but just for the listeners.
Yeah, basically, if you look at the few different, let's put 3 people on the line. You've got Dave Palumbo, Chris Aceto, and George Farr. Dave Palumbo is very much carbs, not happening. He's very much high protein, high fats, very, very minute carbohydrates. Now, if he actually follows that process into competition for all of his athletes or not, we're not quite sure. You got to kind of work with him to find it out. But typically, he likes the ketogenic diet idea. He believes in burning ketones, so you're using body fat for energy versus carbohydrates. You look at George Farr, then he's apparently the carb king. He thinks that eating 10 pounds of rice per day is going to help you build muscle and it's going to help you burn body fat, and he has his own kind of ideas and concepts there. And then if you look to the other guy, Chris Aceto, who kind of sits in the middle, he's more about the whole nutrient content, so the carbs, proteins and fats. He typically doesn't concern himself too much with the fats as far as anything I've read or heard. But he's high protein, moderate carbohydrates, moderate fats. And all 3 of these guys, especially Aceto and George Farah, have got a fantastic record in getting guys in shape. Now, like you said there's more than one way to skin a cat. If carbohydrates work for one person, fantastic. If they don't, they don't. I typically think that you can do it anyway, unless you're very, very carb sensitive, which some people may be or may not be. But as long as you get in shape, does it really matter how you got there? The journey is a little bit different for everyone, from Jay Cutler to Dexter Jackson to Phil Heath. They all get down to low body fat. Did they have different approaches and different trainers and different concepts? Of course they did. But at the end of the day, as long as your body fat is low, it's whatever works for the individual. The same thing, as far as I'm concerned, goes with cardio. People come up to me all of the time and they'll say, "Oh, but someone told me that the treadmill is the best thing for burning body fat." Like, no. And then another person will say, "Oh, the rowing machine is the best thing for burning body fat. It's the best workout ever, blah, 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 blah." No. It's your heart rate level, the exercise intensity levels. I don't care if you're pounding up and down the stairs, you're on a treadmill, you're on a bike. It's the time that you put in and the level of effort that you put in. If you find a treadmill harder, will you burn more calories? Probably, because it's harder. If you find a bike harder, will you burn more calories? Probably, because it's harder. It's a very much individual thing. At the end of the day, you need to find what works for you, and there are many, many, many different avenues. Find the one you're most likely to stick to. Just like all of the fad diets that are out there, drink milk for 6 days and nothing else, or just eat soups or fruits or veg. Will they all have some sort of effect? Yes. But can you sustain them? Most likely not. You need to find something that is in moderation to all of that. Can you keep your carbohydrates low throughout the day, every day for 12 weeks? Most people can if they really want to. Do people typically overeat on carbohydrates if you're going to overeat? Yeah. So avoid what you know is bad, ingest what you know is good. You need to be in control. The same goes with your training. You've got high intensity training, you've got Mike Menser style, you've got volume, you've got FST7. At the end of the day, you're stimulating muscle fiber. It will grow given that it's fed adequately and sufficiently and on time and all that type of stuff. Now, is there a be all and end all. What is the best? No. Are there some ideas out there that are probably not going to work? Yeah, like 400 repetition squats for legs, and that's all you're going to do. Chances are you're not going to grow Ronnie Coleman legs doing 400 repetitions of your body weight. But again, some people will respond. And Craig, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of episodes ago. One guy who claimed he only ate one meal per day. Could it be possible? Yes, it could. Is it likely? No. But again, at the end of the day, if it works for you, it works for you. You need to find out which is the best one that you're most likely to sustain, and which one has the less variables. The less variables, the less they can go wrong. And if something does go wrong, you're more likely to find out straight away what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, the best thing to do, guys, and what we're kind of getting at would be go on to Google and go, best way to diet for a bodybuilding show. That's exactly how vast it is. There's a million different pages giving you a million different options. Do what works for you. You're going to try some stuff, it mightn't work. Try something different, it mightn't work until you find what works best for you. Now, if that's keto, then great. If it's 500 grams of carbs a day, then so be it. You know, but don't pick one way and say, yeah, this is I know how to diet, and that's the end of it. You know, when Colin did text me that time, I was thinking, yeah, that's a very wise thing he said to me, because there is more than one way. There's probably 50 ways to get in shape properly, and every one of them are vastly different to each other. So, just on that note, like, don't take a simple approach. And if you do try an approach and it's not working for you, change it. Don't wait till it's too late and you're kind of going, I'm not going to be ready for the show. You know, if it's not working, change it. You should be seeing differences every week when you're dieting. Every single week there should be some difference. Yeah. Some body fat difference, some vascularity differences, whatever it may be. But there should be some differences. If you're not seeing anything, then, you know, you gotta check yourself and look at yourself, really, because I mean, it's getting back to what we said again. If you keep doing something wrong, what's going to change? Nothing. You end up looking terrible, and you blame everything except the way you dieted. You know.
Yeah, it's very, very common for guys to say, "Oh, well, it's my first show. I'll do 12 weeks," and suddenly you stand up on stage and you should have had another 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I personally, if somebody was going to go and do a show, let's say the show is on in a year's time, I'd say, alright, well, you know, 4 or 5 months out, if you're like 16, 20 weeks, do 2 or 3 weeks, see what makes the small changes, see if cutting your carbs drops your body fat, or see if you need to reduce your total calories, or see if a little bit of cardio here and there helps you. So that way, for the sake of 1 week of dieting or 2 weeks of dieting, 6 months out, it's going to make life a little bit more easy come 12 weeks out when you actually have to start doing it. You're going to know, okay, my body will respond to this. If it didn't respond to doing 20 minutes of cardio in a day, maybe you need to up it to 40 minutes. Maybe you need to do 2 sessions a day. You got to kind of do a dry run or a dress rehearsal for these things. And sometimes your very first show is that dry run. And in your case, Craig, that was it. It was, you came in, you got down, your body fat was down to where you wanted it to be, I would imagine. But can you be better next time? I absolutely hope so, because if not, what are you doing? You know, if you're not improving every time you stand on stage, this goes for everyone out there. If you're not improving, what are you doing? You know, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And I definitely believe that when it comes to health and fitness. If you want to maintain your current levels, fine. But I think if you're going to train to improve, not train to maintain. Especially when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, there's still plenty of time and space out there for your body to grow, to fill out. Now, if you're in your 50s and 60s, are you going to improve very much? Probably not a lot. But, you know, look at our good friend Ian Chambers. He has Bernie Cooper under his books. Yeah. The guy is in his 60s, and he's a monster, you know. And the guy you mentioned earlier, Craig, who competed at the Masters Olympia, is 61 years old. And he's only more, you know. It's everyone is individual. You got to find what works for you, and that is the key. The same when it comes to everything in life. You know, if you enjoy your job, you know, you'll never work a day in your life and all this crap. But at the same time, it stands true. I enjoy going to work. It doesn't kill me to get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning to be at work for 6 or whatever time it is. You know, I enjoy going. I enjoy the people I work with in terms of the clients that I train, and you know, you have to enjoy it. And that's not always the option out there. You know, if you're going the building site and you're laying blocks, how enjoyable can that be day in, day out? I don't know. But if you can take some kind of satisfaction from your job or from your training or just from friendships and relationships, do. Absolutely do. The world's a better place when you're happy.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Okay then, guys, next up on the show is our interview of the week with Mike Pulcinella. It is brought to you by DiscountSupplements.ie, Ireland's premier online supplement store. Our guest this week is a documentary filmmaker with the unique ability to show the viewer the inside world of the subject at hand. You will know him as the man behind some of the best bodybuilding and training lifestyle videos out there today, most notably for his most recent work with the one and only Mr. Kai Green. Mike Pulcinella, welcome to Your Physique Radio.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Mike, it's a pleasure. As you said, I'm here in Arizona. Craig is back home in Ireland, and you're in New Jersey at the moment. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mike, hopefully just going away from the topic why we have you online, hopefully Hurricane Sandy didn't cause you any dismay or everything came through clean on that end for you?
No, it was pretty bad here. We lost power for several days. Got it back recently. We're back in operation, but I really consider all of that just an inconvenience compared to what some of the people along the shoreline have been experiencing. I mean, they lost everything, so I'm counting my blessings here.
Yeah, absolutely. All I can say is watching from the news here, a lot of people went through a lot of hard times, and we said it last week, hopefully people who were going through the hurricane as it approached, they would stay down and stay safe, and hopefully they did do that and they came out the opposite side fine and well, and at the end of it, as long as it's only a material loss, it's not the end of the world. But
exactly, I agree.
Mike, we will get rolling with the main context of the reason we're on here. Documentary filmmaking, the most notable one that I remember you from starting off was with your brother Dave. Tell us how you got into filmmaking in the first place, and then lead us into why Dave became the subject.
It was a complete accident. I had an inexpensive video recorder sitting on the shelf gathering dust, and I wanted to challenge myself to make something that looked remotely like a documentary. I wanted to see if I could do it. I had no skills whatsoever, no experience doing this before. Although I had been a musician for many years and I attempted my hand at journalism and other things along the way, all of these things sort of came together when I tried to do video with my brother. I picked my brother only because he was nearby, accessible, and he was doing something that our family did not understand. It was something so extreme and so radical. And he had been doing it for years, by the way. For years. Since he was a teenager, being a bodybuilder and moving up through the ranks of bodybuilding to get to the national level, that I thought it would be a good topic because it was going to be, dramatic and extreme, and certainly I was satisfied on all of those counts. So it really came about as a challenge to myself to see if I could do it. And if you watch the first Raising the Bar, you can see that it's pretty crude. I really didn't know how to handle a camera. I didn't know what I was doing. But the story was so strong and so compelling, and along the way I learned that I had a strength for telling stories, for making this thing move along at a good pace and not bore the viewer. I think that's still my strongest asset, is that I have a good sense of when enough is enough and when we need to move on and how much we need to see in order to keep it compelling and interesting and hold the viewer's attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mike, you make a good point there actually about keeping the viewer's attention. There is hundreds and thousands of bodybuilding DVDs from all your pros, etc. Some of them, now, in my own opinion, I have watched a lot of them and I've purchased a lot of them, but some of them can be quite repetitive, and all I end up doing is counting the reps. I don't know, it's just a habit, I guess. But in Raising the Bar, you get into the actual proper lifestyle of a bodybuilder, into the eating and the relationships, having kids, everything that comes with bodybuilding, and how tough it is, not just for the bodybuilder, but for the people around them. And I, for one, thought that was very, very interesting take on stuff.
I would love to say that I was some sort of a genius who had watched all of these bodybuilding videos and realized that they were lacking in some way, but that's not the case. In fact, I had never even seen, besides Pumping Iron, which we've all seen, I had never seen any bodybuilding DVDs or videos of any kind. None of the Ronnie Colemans, none of that stuff. And I entered into this not to make a bodybuilding DVD or a bodybuilding video, but to make a documentary about a person's life that happened to include this crazy sport. And as I go on, as I make these videos, I still approach it from the same viewpoint. It's not a bodybuilding video. It's a video about life. And that's a much broader topic.
Yeah.
And that means that so much of what we show is outside of the gym, because as any true bodybuilder knows, what happens in the gym is really only the tip of the iceberg of what happens during a typical day.
Absolutely.
And so that's all the stuff that was fascinating to me. I'll be honest with you and say I was not a particular fan of bodybuilding. I'm still not. I'm very impressed by it. I'm fascinated by it. But I'm not a bodybuilding fan in the sense that I'm not following the sport, the aspects of the sport that I'm not particularly videotaping. People ask me about other contests. Oh, did you see who won this contest? I said, I don't even know, but I'm concentrating on these guys right now, so I know what they're doing. The advice I give to anyone, and I get a lot of people asking me for advice on how to make, bodybuilding videos. I said, don't make a bodybuilding video. Don't do it. Make a video about someone's life, or think of your most favorite TV shows or movies or other documentaries that you've seen, and pattern it off of that. If you like, action adventure, try to make it like an action adventure movie as much as you can. I know that kind of sounds strange, but if you approach it from a strange angle like that, you will end up necessarily with something unique. Again, I'm not saying I thought this out beforehand. This is all hindsight now. It's not like I knew what I was doing. I didn't. But that is what happened. Because I approached it and just tried to make something that looked like a documentary, it ended up being unique and different and including much more than any other bodybuilding DVD had up until that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I'm just on your website here, Mike, at the moment, and one of the quotes you have, and I quote, is, "My goal is to capture the reality of the moment as truthfully as possible, and I apply this philosophy to whatever I shoot." And absolutely, it seems very much like it's a fly-on-the-wall type of documentary. You're not interfering. It doesn't seem like anything is set up. Whether it is or isn't, we can ask about that later, but it typically seems like you catch the moment as it happens, and if you're in the right place at the right time to do so, fantastic. And if you're not, you might miss out, and hopefully we can grab some of those stories later on. But watching Raising the Bar, I saw the first one and the last one. I didn't see the second one, I'll be very honest. But the quality that you produced throughout the change from 1, 2 and 3 is very, very apparent. And I saw also on your website you have a kind of a tutorial there where somebody is doing, Jeff Fiss is doing a max squat. And you go along and you video and you show how to edit it and how to put the quality behind it, because it's not just point and shoot. You got to be in the right place at the right time, and fine, you got to edit to create a little bit of drama here and there, but very much it feels like it's fluid. The what we're watching is true, it's happening, and it very much takes you in and makes you want to see more and more and more. And I know then more recently with the Kai Green videos that you've done, his training DVDs, and then the most recent one with Flex, the day in the life of, I could not wait for that Monday evening to come to log on to Flex Online to try and get a glimpse of this video, because the quality and just the kind of the step back that you seem to take, which I'm sure you're not really taking, but it seems like you're kind of just sitting back and in the shadows, and Kai just acts out like we believe Kai should do. And I just want to say that absolutely I watch every minute of anything you've shot, and like Craig said, we typically just fast forward or go through the motion with other DVDs, but since you've come on to the bodybuilding scene, it's you're definitely up the mark or stepped forwards in terms of the advancement and the production quality of each DVD thereafter.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I'm very thankful when people say that to me. I get a lot of emails saying, basically the same thing, and that makes me feel really good, because I do put a lot of work, a lot of passion into this. But getting back to what you were saying, I do tell my subjects to try to avoid, to ignore me as much as possible. It's really not possible, and that's why it's a rare subject that can be enough aware of me to see. So you have to sort of be aware enough. Like my brother was the first and still my best subject, And he would ignore me to a certain extent. He wouldn't call attention to me. He wouldn't speak directly to me unless I asked him a question. But I also noticed that he would start to speak. He'd start to say something very good, very profound, and he would see out of the corner of his eye that I didn't have the camera on him. Mm-hmm. And I would swing around, and he would very naturally just sort of do a little hiccup and start again. So he was aware of the camera enough to know that I hadn't caught the beginning of his little speech there, and he needed to start over. But at the same time, he wasn't playing to the camera. Yep. And I think that's the difference. As soon as someone starts playing to the camera, it's going to be false, it's going to be phony, and I think the audience picks up on it right away. And in those times where that happens, I tend to want to cut it out.
Yeah, I'd agree that the kind of the fluff or the time fillers is just completely unnecessary, and you do seem to get rid of the stuff that we don't want to hear. If I see somebody talking, I typically think it's not worth it. But anytime somebody's talking in your DVDs that you've shot most recently, definitely it's worth listening to. You know, there's something there to hear, or something to take from the message that they're trying to put out, or maybe it's just something silly, but it's definitely entertaining nonetheless.
It takes a while to get to that point with a subject. It really does, and it takes. We do have to shoot a lot, and like you said, sometimes you catch it, and sometimes you miss it. I think of myself like a big game hunter. I'm out there trying to catch this elusive animal, which is the spontaneous moment, and I want to catch it in such a way that it really shows what's really going on, and that's very difficult, and that's why it's so satisfying when I do get those moments, when I do capture them on film.
Okay, Mike, you've experienced the bodybuilding world now for the best part of, 8 years, I guess?
That's about right.
Yeah, is there any stories that were not caught on video that you'd like to share?
Well, there are a few things that... I think the most profound thing is that the perception of Kai Green is not exactly what you see on screen. And what I mean by that is he comes off as a very together, sort of philosophical guru almost. But in reality, the man is struggling as much, if not more, than the rest of us. And someone once said about all of this, either religion or positive thinking or whatever you latch onto to give you strength through the day, that those that talk about it the most are those that need it the most. And Kai is constantly talking about power of the mind and all this kind of thing, not because he's a master of it, but because he is going through his own struggle.
And when you say struggle, Mike, sorry to cut you off. When you say struggle, what do you mean by struggle exactly?
Struggle with insecurities, struggle with uncertainty. He's not as sure as you might think of all of these things. He's as insecure as any of us, even more so because he's at the top of this game. And the slightest mistake, can throw you from second place, Mr. Olympia, to, 7th or 8th place, a couple of years ago. And it was just a slight miscalculation. So the insecurities that come along with that kind of pressure, and all the sponsors that are waiting for him to succeed, and all the people that have, Kai Green is now an industry.
Yeah. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, he was actually over in Ireland with George Farah doing a guest pose. And I was backstage for your Physique Radio, and we got to meet him. And we were chatting for a few minutes, and like that, I thought the guy is really chilled out, he's really cool, and like you say, philosophical a bit. But I didn't think about it until you just said it, but insecurity-wise, we did ask him for a video interview, and he was kind of all for it. But then he was kind of looking at George Farah as in, like, is this okay? Is this cool? And then George was kind of going, we might get in trouble from MD and Flex, etc., etc. And then he looking at me going, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to get in trouble, which I understand, of course. But I could see the insecurity, and every time I asked him a semi-tough question, it was, I look at George for help or reassurance, so I can see where you're coming from there.
The truest thing you can say about Kai Green at this point is he's being pulled in many different directions at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for anyone, especially difficult for someone who has to bury himself in his work the way he does. Those 20 weeks before our show, he really has to be completely focused. And yet those are the times where we're all trying to get a piece of him.
True.
All, get our photographs and our videos, and it just gets more and more intense, the more difficult it gets for him. So that is true. That you will sometimes see that maybe insecurity is not the right word. He's just being hesitant. He's just being careful because he's been burned before. So that's basically the only thing that I think that is sort of behind the scenes is, his ongoing struggle. Of course, when I edit these things, I try to make them as inspiring as possible. And so, I cut out some of the waffling back and forth, sort of when he's sort of like casting about for ideas and he's trying to put things into words. So we cut all that out, and when he finally crystallizes his thoughts, that's what we put on screen. But if that's all you see, then you think that this guy's really, on top of his game in that way. And although he is, and he can rely on these philosophies to get done what he needs to get done, he's not quite the master of it that he might seem. And I have a lot of people say to me, we really wish you would release the raw footage of the workouts, but especially the raw footage of the interviews. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, you don't want that. You don't want it. It's repetitive, or he's not clear in some way, or he's rambling because he's trying to figure out where he's going with this. And when I shoot interviews with Kai Green, it's like 1 or 2 hours at least for maybe 10 or 15 minutes of really, really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. One thing you did put in the commentary of his most recent his day in the life was that when he went back to his apartment in Brooklyn, you noted on the video that he does actually have a townhouse somewhere else. Now, can you tell us, why do you think he chose to use the apartment, knowing that you were full aware that he did have a townhome? Did he just think you wouldn't mention it and people would think he is kind of struggling in that kind of, I won't say a lesser environment, but it's not exactly the most upscale part of New York? Why does he portray that he's still in that environment?
I don't think it was that exactly. It was really a case of bad time. He had just gotten the townhome, and I saw it. It's empty. There was nothing in it yet. There was no completely moved. He was in the process of moving. It was taking a long time. So he really had these 2 places, and both of them were incomplete. Neither one looked like a place that someone was living in, and so we didn't know what we should do. And that's when he, I think very brilliantly, came upon the idea. He said, look, I got where I am not living in a nice townhouse. I got where I am living in this crappy apartment and having to walk to the gym and take the subway. He says, for those people who want to know what a day in the life of this bodybuilder was like up until very, very recently, I'm going to show you by going by apartment, and we'll start there and we'll show what my life was like. And I think he made the case very well that if all you see is the end result and the flash, you may not quite understand what it takes to get there. Nothing against Phil Heath and Jay Cutler, but you see the nice homes and the fancy cars and everything, and you can be distracted by that and not realize that to get all that, those guys had to really, really work hard, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year after year to get there. And I think Kai recognized that and says, look, let's show the reality of what the reality is for most people who are struggling to do this. Don't have a lot of money. I actually really agreed with that sentiment, and that's why I went along with it so wholeheartedly.
And now that he has got I won't say all of the material things you can imagine, but he's winning prize money, he's getting endorsement deals, he's got contracts. Do you think if he does step away now and go to his nice town home and drive a nice car, whatever it is, do you think he'll have less motivation, or will it just encourage him more to maintain those material objects, that he will actually continue to train and aim to be number 1 in the world? That's
a good question. I think for people like Kai Green and any strives to be a champion of anything, that the material possession, things, the awards sitting on the shelf, aren't as important as moving forward. That's the kind of people that they have to be in order to be champions. They're not the kind of people to sit back and rest. That's just innate in their character. And I think this is just a universal thing I'm saying. And I agree that even with Kai Green, he's never going to be content to just sit there. Whether it's continuing in bodybuilding or some of the other projects that he's trying to do, he's also an artist. He's drawing comic books and other things. He has aspirations for acting, possibly someday. I think he'd be a great motivational speaker. These are all things that he may move into eventually, but I think that the prizes are not going to make him complacent. Not really.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Kai, and not to kind of keep going with Kai Green, but I'll ask a question is how did you actually come to work with Kai Green? And secondly, in the latest documentary you did, inside in the apartment, he's cooking with the hoodie on and the sweat is pouring out of him. I actually felt uncomfortable watching it.
What about me? I was wearing my... It's literally as hot as a sauna in that room. And I'm standing there with him for 45 minutes holding that camera steady as I could. Well, sorry, what was your first question again? How did I get to work with him? The power of the internet. I had been posting clips from Raising the Bar. They had gotten the attention of the president of Muscle Meds, the company that sponsors Kai Green.
Yeah.
He called me up and says, would you like to do something like you did with one of the top bodybuilders in the world? Actually, he called me first about Victor Martinez. That was the first top bodybuilder I worked with. Okay. It was Victor Martinez. And then with Kai Green, he said, Kai Green is going to go to his first Olympia. Would you like to document that? And that, of course, became overkill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really, it was just using the internet to sort of promote myself by showing what I could do by creating these little clips of Raising the Bar and putting it out there.
Now, Mike, when you're given a task or a subject, you're brought on board by Muscle Meds, do you have the conversation with them what type of video they're looking to shoot, or is it free reign for yourself to put your own spin on things?
For that first one, they gave me a script. I said, how can you give me a script when we don't need to know what's going to happen yet? Mm-hmm. and they're like, what? This is the way it's done. Forget the script. Send me out there. I'm just going to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. Then we're going to turn around and look at what I had. The story, the script, everything grows from that. Reality, what happens creates the story. We don't create the story. Many times, with certain subjects, people have tried to sort of force the story. All right, here's what we're going to do. So no, just do what you naturally do. I believe me, trust me, something interesting will happen.
Yeah.
Be able to figure out what's really going on here, and the story will grow from there.
And I think if it was scripted, it would definitely come across on screen anyway.
Oh, absolutely, because these guys aren't actors.
Yeah.
Every time you try to get them to act, it just doesn't. It's not real, and it's obviously not.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that.
I mean, did you find the difference working with Kai when he was under Oscar Arden, and the difference between him when he's under kind of George Farah's hood? How is there a difference in the two, or not, or was Kai being Kai throughout?
No, there's a very big difference. His relationship with Oscar was much closer. Kai was at a point in his career where he really wanted to give himself over to a trainer. And that was the mode that he was in. And so Oscar fulfilled that for him. Now he's much dependent. He's not with George Farah the way he was with Oscar. Mm-hmm. And sucks with George. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I have never actually been with the two of them together.
Okay.
So, but I spent a lot of time with him and Oscar together. It was a completely different kind of relationship.
Yeah, we can see on the videos as well, going based off of your work, that you see the intimacy, the time they went to Vegas a couple of days out, and you said on the video you felt a little bit uncomfortable at one stage, so you shut off the cameras and you went home. One late night session, I believe, in Gold's Flamingos in Las Vegas, and it's it must be hard sometimes to know when the right time is to step away, or when something good could happen for the camera.
It causes me much anxiety, because I always think something's happening that I'm missing. The difficulty with that shoot was that those guys, Oscar and Kai, were not prepared for the level of invasiveness that I needed.
Yeah.
They were told, yeah, this guy's coming out to shoot some video of you. They thought it was going to be the standard, regular kind of thing where I show up at the gym for 20 minutes to an hour and I just shoot some sets and I go home. Didn't want me to be a part of it. They didn't expect me to want to be with them on car rides and things like that. And so I had to really lobby hard for the little bit of time that I did get. But what it was is that once I put Overkill together and they saw it, I got a call from both Kai and Oscar on the phone at the same time, apologizing to me. We didn't understand what you were trying to do. We should have given you more access. We should have let you in. From then on, they did. Mm-hmm. I proved myself, in other words.
Yeah, and that's part of the part of the reason why the videos have been so successful, I'd imagine, because they realise the standard that you can put in if given the access. And the later videos thereafter, you're very much, like we said earlier, you're in Kai's apartment, you're kind of sitting back, he's doing what he's doing, and like you said, it may have taken more time of actual footage than we saw in the videos themselves, but at the end of the day, they must feel a lot more comfortable around you now. And I don't know if George Farr is that same type of guy. Would he let you hang around for one of those conversations that he and Kai would have, just like Oscar and Kai used to do? What do you think? Do you think if there was a training DVD with George Farr in the background, do you think you would have as much access?
I don't know. Like I said, he's not as much a part of the picture as Oscar, so that really hasn't come up. I mean, when I go to shoot Kai, he's pretty much seems to be on his own. Whether or not George would be interested in something like that, we're not sure. I haven't really asked. I don't think. I haven't asked.
Okay. Well,
you mentioned working with Victor Martinez a few minutes ago. How did you find the difference between working with Kai and working with Victor, or is there much of a difference?
There's a big difference, obviously, in their personalities. Victor's a very, very laid-back kind of guy. He's kind of quiet. That makes it a little difficult for me at times, because I need someone who's talkative, to be on camera. But that's okay. I have worked with Victor quite a bit, and he's come around. Again, he trusts me more now, too, so he knows he needs to be a little more vocal. Of course, Victor has had one of the most unfortunate stories in all of boxing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, in all of sports, I reckon.
Probably. I mean, it just seems to be one thing after another. We're actually working on a new video series with him as he recuperates from the data. And it's we're getting some good footage. It's been going pretty well. It's not so much the difference between the two of them that I noticed when I started shooting them, but there was a thing, and I mentioned this in the Day in the Life, actually. There's a difference between the image that the movies try to portray of what it's like for these guys working out in the gym. The photos where they're screaming and yelling and they're shirtless and not. And I was really surprised to find that when I first shot Victor and Kai, some of the other guys, that they're not like that at all. They're quiet. They're very thoughtful, very scientific. No one's screaming. No one's yelling. No one's throwing weights around the gym. Well, maybe Grant Warren does, because that's just him naturally.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But, Victor Martinez does not. And in the very first video shoot I did with him, we had some advertising people there, some of the marketing directors and all, trying to get him pumped up. All right, now scream, growl, things like this. I'm like, why are they making him do this? Well, it looks good on the ads. That's what you want to see. Yep. But I got alone time with Victor and Kai and everybody else. I would just let them be themselves. And you find that it's a much more reserved, thoughtful, like I said, a scientific, precise kind of thing than you would expect from just looking at the magazine pictures.
So, Mike, we've been focusing now for the last few minutes on bodybuilding, and we've seen from your website you've also done some strength guys like powerlifters and etc. etc. Is there anyone outside bodybuilding or even inside bodybuilding you'd like to work with?
There is no name that comes to mind. I would like to be able to apply the skills that I've learned these past few years to something else besides bodybuilding in the same way, but something else besides, not necessarily sport, just something I'd like to expand. I don't mean leap because it's still a fascinating topic to me. It's obviously my life's work, but yeah, there's that I would like to do beyond bodybuilding. I have a few projects that are some possibilities at this point that I probably shouldn't talk about yet because it's still too early in the process.
Okay.
I want to use my skills for good. I want to do good things with them and help as much as I can. I have a video on my YouTube page of this kid who was born with cerebral palsy, and he still works out, competes and from a wheelchair, lifting contest in a wheelchair, wants to open his own gym, and so I did a little video to help promote him. I mean, that kind of thing. It's still 1 foot in this world, but 1 foot out of it as well. And I show what a day in the life is like for him, how difficult it is for him to climb a flight of stairs. Things we take for granted are difficult. And I find that video is one of the most inspiring that I've made people remark on it all the time. That kind of thing makes you really good, like you're giving back, something to the community, or I have developed, and I want to do something good with them, and that's a perfect example.
Mike, speaking of a day in the life of, we've seen a day in the life of Kai. You've looking at a day in the life of that child with cerebral palsy. What about a day in the life of Mike Pulcinella? What time is a shooting day begin? Do you go home and do you edit that night, or do you just focus on shooting? Then when it's all done and dusted, do some editing? How does it work?
The shoots are actually somewhat few and far between, and they can range from a few hours to truly all day. Like when we do the Train with Kai Green series, and we have a winner from the contest come, and we'll spend the whole day at Powerhouse Gym on Long Island. I hope it's still there, by the way. I haven't even talked to anyone over there.
I think it's okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, that's an all-day shoot. We'll spend a lot of time doing interviews. We'll break for lunch. We'll do the workout, that sort of thing. I consider, again, making the comparison to big game hunting. That's the safari. We go out, capture as much as we can that day. The footage I capture on a day like that'll last me for weeks of editing. Editing is incredibly, incredibly time-consuming. You have to love that part of it, or you're not going to be able to do this. And that's why I think so many videos are very quickly shot and edited and put online, because it's tough. It takes a lot of time. I've been very, very lucky in that the people that I work for appreciate the quality of what I do, and they understand that this kind of quality takes time. And so I'm given more time to create my videos than I think anybody in this industry. I'm very thankful for that, because sometimes you can't do it any faster. So once we have the tapes from a shoot, and I have them here, I start downloading them to my computer. I easily spend 8 or 10 hours a day sitting at this computer, going through the foot, trying to put it together in different combinations, matching it with music and that sort of thing. And it can take many weeks. So most of my time is spent sitting, unfortunately.
Mike, with the experience you've gained now, do you find that you spend more time editing the same amount of footage, or less because you're just getting better at it, or more because you're being more particular about what you put in?
You're absolutely right. I am faster than I used to be, but I'm also more particular. I want to raise the bar for my own game, and I want it to be better and better and better. And so therefore, try to be more meticulous about it. So it's still about the same, even though I'm better.
Mike, with all of the work you've done in the last 8 years around the bodybuilding scene, do you spend much time in the gym yourself, or is it just a an unknown world to you, because your brother obviously was a very competitive bodybuilder at the amateur level, tried to go to pro, didn't quite happen, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But do you exercise, do you keep healthy? Because our listeners would like to know that, I'm sure.
Because this job is so sedentary, because I'm sitting for most of my day, I can see my health. So I make sure I get to the gym every day that I can. And that's usually 5 days a week on average. And I work out very hard. I don't try to be a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to get bigger, a lot bigger. I was trying to do that about 10 years ago. Egged on by my brother. You could do this, he wanted to get me on stage and all. But I found that I moved more slowly. And for this job, when I go out on shoots, I need to be on my feet all day, and I need to be agile and be able to move lights across the room. So I'm actually about 180 pounds, but in pretty good shape for a 51-year-old. And yes, I get to the gym every day. In fact, I just posted a picture the other day on Facebook that looked pretty good. Where I was doing some curls and my arms looked pretty good, so I posted it.
Absolutely, the pumped up shot always looks the best, doesn't it? But not to worry.
Moving to New Jersey and really settling down into this area and really working a lot more. I'm also rubbing elbows with the bodybuilders and the other kinds of athletes that I work with, and pick up a lot of tips from them, a lot of inspiration too, that I take with me into the gym. And I can do a lot more at 51 than I was doing it at 50, so I think that's a good thing.
Mike, would it be? I mean, it's something that I seen years ago in a bodybuilding documentary, but they're good documentaries, but they could be made a lot better. If it was possible, let's say, for you to work with the top 6 in the Mr. Olympia, or the top 10, and do like 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out, this kind of a thing, and do 1 day with them, and put it all into like a 2-hour DVD. Is that something that you think could be done, and would it be worth watching?
I think I could do it. I think it'd be worth watching, but I think it'd be nearly, I don't want to say impossible, because it does get done. I mean, you have the Battle for the Olympia DVDs. Those are still being made. They were originally made by Mitsuru, by Mitch.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
Made by a friend of mine, Bruce. And you have this new, what's called the new pumping iron. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
It can be done, but both of those things, they pay a lot of money to get that done, because you have a lot of different sponsors, a lot of different people who are involved. So it's really, really difficult to get all of these guys together. I don't know that if at my level me personally, I couldn't get that done. They wouldn't do it. For me personally, Mike Pulcinella. Could I do it through MHP or Muscle Meds? Maybe, if that was something that they wanted to do. But again, the sponsors of Barn wouldn't want to work with them. So I'm not enough in business to know really how these guys get it done. They're just paying a lot of money to get these guys on. Yeah, it would be great. It would be great to do a new pumping iron. And from what trailer, this new thing, it looks really good, but it also a bit manufactured.
Yeah, there's a little bit of I saw the trailer. I was at the Olympia myself this year, Mike, and the Generation Iron clip came on, and there was a little bit of cheesiness going on. Like, there's one scene where Phil Heath is up running in the mountains in Colorado, and I mean, come on. When is Phil Heath really going to go running in Colorado at his body weight? There's just no need for it. And you can see the stage scene. There's one with Kai Green. You can clearly see it's 100% staged. He's trying to look mysterious or whatever it is. But then there are other parts of it which look good. It's in the trenches and it's there and it looks somewhat real. But it's definitely not what I would call a documentary. More, as Arnold Schwarzenegger called Pumping Iron, a docudrama. A little bit staged, but a little bit real at the same time.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine, but that's not something that I would want to do. I'd rather as real as possible.
I agree.
I think it would be in bodybuilding's interest for people to come together and maybe give you a call, Mike, to do something like that, because it could really really give the IFBB pros a boost because of you do such a good job on it. You know what I mean?
Well, why hasn't that happened? You tell me. I agree with you.
I guess there's so many contractual issues, I guess, and like you said, like you mentioned with sponsorship and all that, that's probably the stumbling point, I would guess.
I think so. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, one question we brought up your brother in the past. What is your brother up to these days? Where is he in the world?
My brother Dave is a very successful trainer of body figure competitors. We went to a test recently. I watched as I think 4 of his competitors won their weight classes, and one of them won their overall. He's still huge. He's still a bodybuilder. He will always. He's big. He's ripped. He has no desire to compete as a bodybuilder, however. He's put that part of his life behind him, but he's happy, successful, and big. What more could you want?
There you go. Well, Mike, unless there's anything else you would like to share, if you want to give out your contact information, so if anybody does want to send you some good wishes or get in contact in terms of DVDs or advertising, anything like that, how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Facebook is great. Mike Pulcinella, just search Mike Pulcinella on Facebook. And, of course, my website, MikePulcinella.com, has my contact information there, and you can buy DVDs. You can look at sample clips of DVDs, and you can buy them right there.
Excellent. Well, Mike Pulcinella, thank you very much for joining us here on Your Physique Radio. For myself, Colin Kennedy, and Craig Clifford as well. It's been a pleasure. We do appreciate taking the time out of your busy afternoon, I'm sure, in New Jersey, here in the United States. And Mike, best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alright guys, very happy to have Mike Pulcinella on the show. I will hope that you would agree that the interview was very good. Some interesting points brought up by Mike. Some stuff we didn't think he would be willing to say on air, but he did, and look, it is what it is. Craig, how did you find the interview? I mean, we just listened back to it there now, as well as the rest of our listeners did. It's information about behind the scenes, about Kai Green, stuff that has definitely come more to the forefront in the last couple of weeks since he did his video seminar. And it kind of ratifies it or verifies that Kai isn't who he seems to be on camera. Does that mean I like him less? No, of course not. I really like the guy in terms of his physique and his drive and all that kind of this. And of course, you got to say, well, he came from a tough background or whatever. Look, it is what it is. Physique-wise and intensity-wise, I can't flaw the man or I can't fault the man whatsoever. But definitely very, very happy to have Mike on the show to give us some insight into first video editing and video documentary making, bodybuilding, then his brother with raising the bar 1, 2 and 3 and how he got into it all, and then of course later on then with all the Kai Green stuff. Very, very, very nice to hear the man behind the camera speaking freely and not kind of holding back on what he said.
Yeah, we've been a fan of his for going on 5 or 6 years now. Like, we loved his stuff. We loved watching his videos, and it was an honour for me anyway to get him on the show, and we'd like to thank him, and hopefully we'll get him on again pretty soon.
Yeah, Mike, again, I'm sure you're listening as we did mention we would hope to get you back, and you said absolutely, so we will probably hold you to that in the coming months, or maybe mid of next year, when we've some more MHP videos out there with Victor Martinez doing his comeback, and Jose Raymond is on there as well. Of course, Kai Green with Muscle Meds. But Mike, thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in these last 20 episodes. We do appreciate your time. We probably won't be back until the new year. So in 2013, Your Physique Radio will be back bigger and better than ever. And, if you want to get in contact with us between now and then, Craig has the information coming up right now.
Yeah, guys, if you want to contact the greatest trainer in Arizona and probably the West Coast of the United States, get out to Colin at www.yourphysiquepersonaltraining.com. If you want to contact myself, get on to facebook.com/CastleMyGym, or contact myself as well. You can go to personaltrainingcarry@gmail.com. If you want to contact the show, get on to facebook.com/yourphysiqueradio. You can email us, guys, yourphysiqueradio@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Physique Radio. So, from Colin and from myself, we want to wish all our listeners, guys, thanks for sticking by us this year. 20 shows in. We loved it. We hope we've another 20, 200 to go. Wish you all happy holidays. Enjoy your time off. Don't drink or eat too much. And like we said, set your goals and enjoy your new year.
Guys, with that, like Craig said, can't say it any more than he did. Just say Happy Hanukkah to the Jewish folk that are out there, and Happy Christmas to those. We will see you on the other side of December 31st in 2013 for another fantastic season of Your Physique Radio. And again, thank you for tuning in for the past 20 episodes. Craig, with that, we have come to the end of episode number 20 of Your Physique Radio. Remember, it's your physique.
And it's your choice.
Thank you for listening to Your Physique Radio in association with irishmuscle.ie. Replays of all previous episodes can be found on iTunes, YouTube and Facebook. And for advertising opportunities, you can contact us at yourphysiqueradio@gmail.com. Your Physique